The courtroom was filled with an air of tension, each breath taken by the spectators felt like a drumbeat in the silence. Lawyers whispered to one another, the judge sat with an expression of steady focus, and reporters scribbled down their thoughts in the back of the room. Elon Musk, known to the world as the genius behind SpaceX, Tesla, and a series of groundbreaking innovations, was seated at the defendant's table. His usual confident demeanor was replaced by an unusual stillness, his hands folded in front of him, fingers tapping slightly against the table. Today, he wasn't here as the visionary entrepreneur, but as a man accused, standing before a legal battle that could turn the course of his life. The charges were serious, allegations of corporate misconduct, fraud, and actions that jeopardized millions of dollars in investments. Musk's lawyers were doing their best to mount a defense, but the atmosphere in the room suggested that the case was slipping out of their control. As the prosecutor presented their argument, there was an underlying sense of inevitability about how things would unfold. Suddenly, in the midst of the argument, something happened that no one could have anticipated. A slight movement caught the eye of those seated in the front row. Elon Musk, ever the enigma, glanced toward a corner of the courtroom, toward the gallery where his personal assistant sat with a small dog by his side. It was a simple gesture, one that appeared harmless at first. But when Musk subtly raised his hand, giving a brief and almost imperceptible signal to his dog, a hushed murmur rippled through the room. Why was he giving a signal to his dog in the middle of such a serious trial? The dog, an unusually large yet calm German shepherd, was sitting obediently on the floor, its eyes locked on Musk, seemingly aware of the importance of the moment. This small, curious gesture did not go unnoticed. Lawyers exchanged nervous glances. A few reporters blinked, unsure of what they had just seen. But most surprisingly, it was the judge who reacted most immediately. Judge Lorraine Carmichael, a woman known for her sharp wit and no-nonsense approach to the law, stood up abruptly, her gavel poised in midair. The entire room fell silent. "Wait a moment," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "What was that? What is going on here?" The room seemed to hold its breath as all eyes turned to Musk, who remained unfazed by the sudden scrutiny. His expression was unreadable, as if he had been expecting this moment to come. He sat back in his chair, exhaling slowly, his eyes never leaving his dog. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. The prosecutor was the first to break the silence. "Your Honor, with all due respect, I don't see how this is relevant to the case at hand. We are here to discuss the charges against Mr. Musk, not his." He paused, realizing that he had no appropriate word to describe the situation. "Dog." But Judge Carmichael was not so easily deterred. "Mr. Musk, what is the meaning of that signal? Why did you give a signal to your dog in the middle of this courtroom?" The question hung in the air, and for the first time in the entire trial, all eyes were on Musk. He slowly stood up, his usual calm demeanor now laced with a quiet intensity. His movements were deliberate, measured, as if he knew exactly how to handle the situation. "I assure you, Judge," Musk began, his voice steady but carrying an underlying weight, "that the signal I gave to my dog was not meant to disrupt the proceedings in any way. However, I do believe it is relevant to the case at hand." A ripple of confusion swept through the room. Lawyers, spectators, and even the judge herself seemed unsure of what Musk was implying. "I have always maintained that I operate with transparency and integrity," Musk continued, his eyes never leaving the judge's. "And while I cannot explain the entirety of this case right now, there is something that my dog knows, something that will change everything." The words were cryptic, and the room grew even more tense. Everyone knew that Musk had a reputation for being eccentric, but this was beyond what anyone had expected. His dog, which had been nothing more than a quiet observer up until this point, now seemed to hold the key to some unknown truth. The spectators were on the edge of their seats, desperate to know what would happen next. Judge Carmichael raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical but intrigued. "Mr. Musk, this better not be a stunt. We are here to discuss matters of great importance, not to entertain conspiracy theories." If you think your dog holds the answer to your defense, you will need to provide a clear explanation. Now. Elon paused for a moment, as if weighing his next words carefully. The room waited, expectantly. It was almost as if Musk knew this moment was coming, as if the entirety of his journey had been leading up to this one strange, unsettling moment. You see, he began, a slight smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, the signal I gave was not random. It was a signal to someone, or something, that will soon reveal the truth about the situation we're in. Before anyone could respond, Musk turned to the dog and, in a voice that barely carried above a whisper, said, "Go ahead." There was a brief moment of stillness. Then, as if on cue, the dog stood up, its movements deliberate, almost as if it understood the gravity of the moment. With one swift motion, it bounded toward the back of the courtroom where the assistant was seated, carrying something in its mouth. Gasps filled the room as the dog dropped the object onto the floor. It was a small, unassuming envelope, one that looked ordinary enough. But the way it had been delivered was anything but ordinary. The entire courtroom was now completely captivated by what was unfolding before them. Judge Carmichael, clearly taken aback by the sudden turn of events, gestured for the envelope to be brought to her. Her eyes flicked to Musk, then to the dog, and back again, trying to process the situation. The assistant quickly handed the envelope to the judge, who tore it open with a sense of urgency. As she read the contents of the letter, the room fell into an eerie silence. No one moved, no one dared to breathe. Whatever was written inside that envelope would change everything. "Mr. Musk," Judge Carmichael finally spoke, her voice trembling ever so slightly. "What in the world have you gotten us into?" Elon remained calm. "I've been trying to tell you all along. It's not just about the charges. It's about something much bigger. And I think it's time the world knows the truth." As the judge continued to read, the tension in the room reached a boiling point. The dog had just delivered a message that no one had expected, a message that, if true, would change the entire course of the trial and, possibly, the future itself. The question now wasn't whether Elon Musk was guilty of the charges leveled against him. The real question was, what did the letter say, and what was Musk's dog trying to tell them all? And just like that, the courtroom was no longer just a place for legal proceedings, it had become the stage for a far deeper mystery. One that would unravel over the coming chapters, leading everyone down a path they never could have anticipated. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Elon Musk had always been a man of mystery. To the public, he was the face of innovation, the eccentric billionaire whose ventures reached for the stars, both literally and figuratively. With companies like Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink, he was the modern-day genius driving humanity forward. But behind the headlines, there was a much more complex story, a story of ambition, heartbreak, failure, and relentless drive. Born in Pretoria, South Africa, in 1971, Elon's childhood was far from ordinary. His parents, May Musk, a model and dietitian, and Errol Musk, an electromechanical engineer, were both highly educated individuals, but their marriage was tumultuous, ending in divorce when Elon was just 9 years old. Growing up in a split household, Elon often felt isolated. He didn't connect with his peers easily. Instead of spending time with other kids, he buried himself in books and became obsessed with technology. His curiosity often led him to strange and seemingly impossible ideas. Elon was a voracious reader, particularly drawn to science fiction. Books like Isaac Asimov's Foundation series and Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy painted a world in which technology could transcend the mundane and shape the future. But he didn't just want to read about these worlds, he wanted to create them. As a child, he was bullied mercilessly at school for being different, for not conforming to the expectations of those around him. He was awkward, introverted, and always thinking outside the box. But while others mocked him for his perceived oddities, he found solace in his imagination and in the world of science and technology. His father was a complicated figure in his life, charismatic, intelligent, but often emotionally distant. Their strained relationship was another source of pain for Elon. However, it was his mother, May, who would provide the emotional support and inspiration he needed. Despite their difficult circumstances, May always encouraged Elon's intellectual pursuits and, to some extent, was his emotional anchor. In his teenage years, Elon developed an interest in computing and started learning how to code. At 12, he sold his first computer program, an arcade game called Blaster, for $500. The experience gave him a glimpse of the power of technology to create wealth and change the world. But it also sowed the seeds of his lifelong obsession, the belief that humanity could achieve anything if it set its sights high enough. When Elon turned 17, he moved to Canada to attend Queen's University, escaping the complicated dynamics of his family life. But the escape was not without its challenges. At the time, he was still grappling with the question of whether he had the ability to achieve the seemingly impossible goals he set for himself. His path wasn't clear. Even with his intelligence and his growing success in the tech world, he had little idea of how he would change the world. But one thing was certain, he wasn't going to stop trying. After 2 years at Queen's University, Elon transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, where he earned degrees in both economics and physics. He later moved to California to pursue a PhD at Stanford University, but after just 2 days, he dropped out to follow his entrepreneurial dreams. His intuition told him that the world was ready for a revolution in technology, and that the Silicon Valley culture would provide him with the freedom to push boundaries in ways that traditional education never could. It wasn't long before Elon made a name for himself with Zip2, a software company he co-founded with his brother Kimball. After selling Zip2 for nearly $300 million in 1999, he turned his focus to new ventures, creating X.com, which would eventually evolve into PayPal. When PayPal was bought by eBay for $1.5 billion in stock, Elon was able to fund his true passion projects. Space exploration, electric vehicles, and sustainable energy, these were the goals that now consumed Elon. He envisioned a future where humans could colonize Mars, where electric vehicles were the norm, and where the world's energy problems were solved by solar power. His vision was big, bold, and audacious. But it was exactly what the world needed. And yet, for all his success, Elon was not immune to personal struggles. His marriages, for example, were highly publicized and often tumultuous. His first marriage to Justine Musk ended in divorce, and his subsequent marriages to Tallulah Riley had their own share of ups and downs. Behind closed doors, he wrestled with loneliness, self-doubt, and the intense pressure to live up to the immense expectations placed upon him. But in many ways, his personal life mirrored the relentless pace of his professional life. Every failure was met with an even greater push forward. For Elon, there were no real setbacks, only opportunities to learn and improve. His relationship with his children, especially with his 5 sons from his first marriage, remained strong. Despite his public persona as a workaholic, he found ways to remain an active father, even if his time with them was often limited. Through it all, one constant remained, his dog. The German Shepherd, named Tesla after his famous company, had been a companion to Elon during some of his darkest moments. Tesla was no ordinary dog. She had an uncanny sense of understanding, almost as though she knew when Elon needed comfort or when he was on the brink of making a decision that could change the course of his life. There were times when he would sit alone in his office, contemplating some new project or grappling with the pressure of running multiple companies, and Tesla would sit beside him, her eyes locked onto his, offering silent support. Tesla had been with him through it all, the highs and lows, the moments of doubt and the bursts of brilliance. It was said that Elon's bond with Tesla went beyond that of a typical pet-owner relationship. He trusted her in ways he couldn't trust anyone else. She was more than just a dog, she was a silent confidant and a key player in the network of people and things that Elon relied on to get through his days. It was only natural, then, that when the world was watching him in that courtroom, he would turn to Tesla for support. But what no one knew, what no one could have possibly predicted, was that Tesla was more than just a comfort for Elon. She was about to play a much larger role in the drama unfolding in that very courtroom. Elon Musk had always been a man with secrets, and Tesla, it seemed, was in on them. As the scene in the courtroom unfolded, and the eyes of the world turned toward the envelope delivered by the dog, those who knew Elon's story might have been the only ones who could begin to understand the complexity of the situation. But for now, the world was waiting. Waiting to see what the letter contained, and what role Tesla would play in the strange, unexpected turn of events that had just begun. As the judge held the envelope in her hands, the entire courtroom held its breath. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft shuffle of paper as Judge Lorraine Carmichael opened the envelope, revealing the contents. Her eyes scanned the letter quickly, her brow furrowing slightly as she read the message. No one dared to speak. Elon Musk remained seated, his gaze fixed not on the judge but on his dog, Tesla, who was now lying calmly at his feet. There was something unnerving about the way Musk had handled the situation. His calm demeanor, despite the chaos unfolding around him, sent an eerie chill through the room. It was as though he had expected this moment, like he had planned it all along. Judge Carmichael set the letter down on the bench in front of her, taking a long breath before speaking. "Mr. Musk, I'm not sure what game you think you're playing here," she said, her voice calm but laced with skepticism. "But I want to know what is going on. Right now." Elon finally stood, his voice low but steady. "What is going on, Your Honor, is something far bigger than you or I. This trial, it's a distraction, a piece of a much larger puzzle. The truth about what's happening here isn't what you think it is. And that letter, well, that's just the beginning." The room was in an uproar. Whispers spread like wildfire among the spectators, and even some of the lawyers appeared bewildered. The prosecutor, who had been glaring at Musk, was the first to find his voice. "Mr. Musk, you're not above the law. You're here to answer for your actions, not to make cryptic statements that don't help your case." Elon didn't flinch. "I'm not here to play by your rules," he said, his tone unwavering. "The rules I follow are different. The world you think you know is not the world I live in." Judge Carmichael's eyes narrowed. "You're implying that you're above the law?" she asked, her voice laced with incredulity. "I'm not above the law," Elon replied, his voice almost too calm. "But I have something that you need to understand. And I will make you understand it, whether you want to or not." With that, Musk turned toward the dog, Tesla, and gave her another brief signal, just a slight movement of his hand. Tesla stood, her powerful frame rising from the floor, her eyes locked on Musk, waiting for the next command. The dog was no longer a mere companion. Tesla had become a symbol, a link to something beyond the courtroom, something that held the key to unlocking the mystery that was rapidly unfolding. Judge Carmichael stood up, her gavel coming down sharply as she called for order. "Mr. Musk," she said firmly, "you are on trial for serious accusations. I will not tolerate this nonsense any longer. If you think for a second that you can manipulate this courtroom with your games and your dog, you are gravely mistaken." Elon didn't respond right away. Instead, he turned toward his assistant, who had been sitting quietly in the gallery with Tesla. His assistant, a middle-aged man named Kevin, stood up and walked toward the bench. He held something in his hands, another envelope, just like the one the judge had opened moments earlier. "Your Honor," Kevin said, his voice trembling slightly, "I believe this might help clarify things." The judge's face reddened. "Another envelope? Is this some kind of joke?" she snapped, but there was a hint of fear in her voice, as if she too sensed that something strange was happening. Kevin walked up to the judge and handed her the envelope. She hesitated for a moment before opening it, her hands slightly shaking. As she read the contents of the letter, the atmosphere in the courtroom became thick with tension. Whatever it was something significant. Finally, The judge looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. This can't be possible, she murmured. Elon remained silent, waiting patiently as the judge processed the letter's contents. The room seemed to hold its breath, as though the world was waiting for the judge to speak. "This," Judge Carmichael began, her voice trembling slightly, "this is classified. How did you come by this information, Mr. Musk?" Elon stood there, his hands folded calmly in front of him. "I'm afraid that's not something I can explain to you at the moment. But what I can tell you is that this letter confirms everything I've been saying. The truth of what's happening, what we've all been blind to, it's all connected. And it goes far beyond what anyone has realized." The tension in the courtroom reached a boiling point. Some of the spectators, who had been murmuring under their breath, now whispered in frantic tones, uncertain about what they had just witnessed. What was in those letters? What had Elon Musk revealed? And most importantly, what did it mean for the trial? The prosecutor, now visibly unsettled, stepped forward. "Your Honor, this is absurd. We cannot proceed with this trial if Mr. Musk continues to play these games. This is not how justice is served. He's clearly trying to distract us from the real issues at hand." Judge Carmichael took a deep breath, steadying herself. "This trial is about the charges against you, Mr. Musk. But it's clear now that there's more at play here than we thought. I'm ordering a recess, immediately." The gavel slammed down, and the room erupted into chaos. People were shouting, asking questions, and trying to process what had just happened. The courtroom buzzed with confusion, but Elon stood tall, unmoving, watching as everything around him seemed to spiral into uncertainty. Outside the courtroom, the world was already beginning to speculate. News outlets had picked up the story, and social media buzzed with rumors. Elon Musk had just done something that no one had expected. He had caused a disruption, a ripple in the fabric of the trial, and in doing so, he had raised far more questions than answers. But what was he trying to say? What was in those letters, and why had he chosen this moment to reveal them? The courtroom had been thrown into disarray, but Musk seemed unshaken. He knew what was coming, and he had a plan. As the trial adjourned for the day, Elon Musk stepped outside into the chaos of the media frenzy. Cameras flashed, microphones were thrust toward him, and reporters shouted questions. But Elon didn't answer. He didn't need to. His eyes were fixed on one thing and one thing only, Tesla, who was standing by his side, waiting for his next command. In that moment, Elon knew the world was about to change. The trial was just the beginning. And whatever was to come next, it would be nothing short of extraordinary. The next few days after the courtroom incident were a whirlwind of media coverage, speculation, and chaos. News outlets couldn't get enough of the dramatic scene in Judge Carmichael's courtroom. Social media exploded with conspiracy theories, and Musk's every move became headline news. Everyone wanted to know what had been in that mysterious letter, what Elon Musk was really up to, and, most importantly, why his dog, Tesla, had played such an integral role in the events. But while the world fixated on his every move, Elon Musk retreated into the quiet of his private office. The chaos outside didn't faze him. He knew this was just the beginning. Whatever he had set in motion, it would unfold in ways no one could have predicted. Sitting at his desk, Elon stared at the contents of the envelope that had caused such a stir. It wasn't just a piece of paper, it was the key to a far greater story. One that would change everything. The letter contained a set of coordinates, but not just any coordinates, these were far more significant. They pointed to a remote location in the Nevada desert, an area that had long been rumored to be the site of secret government projects and undisclosed technologies. A place that some had speculated was linked to extraterrestrial discoveries, or even a technology so advanced that it could change the future of humanity itself. But what was the real story behind those coordinates? Why had this information come into Musk's possession? More importantly, why had it been sent by a mysterious entity who seemed to have ties to the highest echelons of power? Elon's mind raced as he carefully studied the letter, his fingers running over the ink. There was no return address, no signature. It was as if it had come from nowhere, or perhaps from everywhere. But there was one thing he knew for certain: this wasn't just about the trial anymore. This was about something much bigger, something far more dangerous. He closed the letter, folding it carefully before placing it in a drawer. He needed to think. He needed time to plan his next move. But there was one thing that he couldn't ignore: Tesla. His dog, whose unshakable presence had become a quiet but vital part of his life, was not just a companion anymore. Tesla had always been more than a pet, she was a source of inexplicable comfort. But now, Elon began to wonder if there was something deeper at play. Something about Tesla's connection to him seemed almost otherworldly. It was as if the dog was always there at the right time, providing support when he needed it most. Suddenly, the calm of the room was broken by a soft knock on the door. "Elon," came a voice from the other side. It was Kevin, his loyal assistant, the man who had delivered the second letter to the judge just days before. "You need to see this." Elon motioned for Kevin to enter. As the door creaked open, Kevin stepped inside, a look of concern on his face. In his hand was a small device, a sleek black tablet, which he handed over to Elon without saying a word. Elon looked down at the screen, his heart skipping a beat. It was a live feed, but not from anywhere ordinary. The location displayed on the map matched the coordinates from the letter: the Nevada desert. "What is this?" Elon asked, his voice low, filled with curiosity and a sense of unease. "It's a satellite image, but it's not public," Kevin explained. "It's from a private source. They've been monitoring that area for years, ever since rumors about strange activity started circulating." Elon zoomed in on the image. It was difficult to make out at first, but there was something unmistakable about it. A structure, large, metallic, and clearly man-made, loomed over the desert landscape. It was hidden deep within a canyon, almost invisible to the untrained eye. "The government doesn't acknowledge it," Kevin continued, "but there have been whispers. Some say it's an old military facility. Others claim it's an alien craft. But whatever it is, it's been untouched for decades. Until now." Elon felt a surge of excitement mixed with apprehension. This was the beginning of something monumental. If he could get to that location, find out what was hidden there, it could be the key to unlocking the next phase of human progress. It could explain everything: the cryptic messages, the secrecy, the strange coincidences. But there was a problem. "They'll never let us in," Elon muttered, almost to himself. "The government, the military, they'll stop us before we even get close." Kevin hesitated before responding. "Elon, there's something else you should know. Someone else is already there. And they've been watching you." Elon looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "I don't have all the details," Kevin said, "but I've been getting reports from an anonymous source. Someone's tracking your movements. They know everything about the trial, about the letters, about Tesla. And they're not happy you're looking into this." Elon's mind raced. There was no way this could be a coincidence. Whoever was behind this, they weren't just watching him, they were trying to control the narrative. They had seen what had happened in the courtroom and understood that he wasn't just a billionaire tech mogul anymore. He was a player in a game much larger than he'd ever anticipated. "They're trying to stop us," Elon said, his voice cold. Kevin nodded, his expression serious. "But we're not backing down. We're going to find out what's going on, no matter the cost." Elon stood up, a fire igniting in his chest. He had no idea what he was about to face, but he was certain of one thing: this was the journey he had been waiting for. There would be no turning back. "Prepare the team," Elon said, his voice unwavering. "We're going to the Nevada desert." And with that, the next chapter of Elon Musk's incredible journey began, a journey that would take him to the very edge of discovery, and beyond. But little did he know, the path ahead would be fraught with danger, deception, and hidden truths. The journey was about to get much darker. The drive through the Nevada desert was nothing like what Elon Musk had anticipated. The vast stretches of barren land, punctuated by the occasional rocky outcrop, felt almost suffocating. The sky above, a perfect shade of blue, did nothing to calm the unease that gnawed at his insides. Tesla, his ever-vigilant dog, sat at his side in the Tesla Model X, her eyes scanning the horizon with a quiet, unwavering intensity. Elon couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His mind kept returning to Kevin's warning, "Someone's been tracking you. They know everything." The weight of those words hung over him as the miles stretched on, the desert seeming to close in around them. His team, Kevin, a few trusted engineers, and a handful of security personnel, traveled with him in 2 other vehicles. They were heading toward a location marked by the mysterious coordinates. According to the satellite image Kevin had shown him, there was a hidden facility buried deep in the desert. And whatever secrets it held, Elon knew it would change everything. But the more he thought about the situation, the more he realized how little he knew about the forces at play. As the convoy drove deeper into the desert, Elon's mind drifted back to the trial. It had been only days since the courtroom incident, but it felt like a lifetime. The letter, the coded message, and Tesla's uncanny behavior, they were all pieces of a puzzle that, until now, hadn't made any sense. "Are we close?" Elon asked, his voice breaking through the silence. Kevin glanced over from the passenger seat of the other car, his face drawn tight with tension. "We're about 30 minutes out. But there's something strange happening. We're picking up some interference on the GPS. It's not normal." Elon's brow furrowed. The GPS had been working fine until just a few minutes ago, but now it was glitching, the coordinates bouncing around on the screen. "Keep your eyes peeled," Elon said, his voice becoming more serious. "If there's anyone trying to mislead us, we need to know right now." Tesla let out a low growl from the back seat, her ears perked up. Elon turned toward her, her behavior growing more erratic by the minute. She was acting strange, agitated, almost like she was anticipating something. "Something's wrong," Elon murmured, his gaze flicking to the barren desert that stretched out before them. "We should have reached the site by now." Just as he spoke, there was a sudden flash of movement in the distance, a dark shadow darting across the desert. Elon's heart raced as his grip tightened on the wheel. Tesla stood up, her eyes locked on the horizon. "Pull over," Elon commanded, his voice tight with urgency. "Stop the convoy." Kevin's vehicle came to a screeching halt, and the convoy quickly fell into a defensive formation, tires kicking up clouds of dust as they braked. The team was on high alert now, eyes scanning the desert for any sign of movement. But the more they looked, the less they saw. "We're not alone out here," Elon said, his voice a low growl as he reached for his phone, trying to re-establish the GPS signal. But the screen remained black. Something was blocking their communication. The only sound was the howling wind as it swept through the empty landscape. Then, Tesla let out another growl, this one louder, more intense. Elon's heart pounded in his chest as he looked over at her. She wasn't just sensing something. She was reacting to it. Suddenly, a voice crackled through the radio in the convoy's lead vehicle, cutting through the tension like a knife. "This is Lieutenant Harris. We've got a problem. Something just triggered the alarm systems at the facility." Elon's pulse quickened. "What do you mean, triggered the alarm systems?" he demanded, his voice sharp. "Something's here," Harris responded, his tone urgent. Someone, just broke into the perimeter. We don't know who or what it is, but they're inside. We're locked out. I'm trying to get access, but the security's off the charts." Elon's mind raced. The moment they had been preparing for, the moment he had anticipated for days, had arrived. The mystery of the facility, the letters, the trial, it was all converging here, in the desolate wilderness. "This isn't just a breach," Kevin said, his voice tense. This is a warning. Someone's trying to stop us. Elon didn't waste any more time. He grabbed his jacket and threw open the door. Tesla was already by his side, her posture tense and alert. Stay close, Elon commanded, and she obeyed, walking just a step behind him. The air felt heavy as Elon and his team approached the entrance of the facility. The metallic structure that had been visible on the satellite images now stood before them, massive, intimidating, and silent. It was surrounded by high fences, and cameras seemed to watch them from every angle. But it wasn't the facility's size that intimidated Elon. It was the feeling in the air, something wasn't right. As they neared the entrance, the security gate, normally locked and impenetrable, was wide open. The alarms had stopped, but an eerie stillness hung over the site. Something had changed. The atmosphere felt charged, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. Elon's thoughts were a whirlwind. Who had gotten in? What did they want? And why was Tesla acting like this? They reached the front of the facility, where the team gathered, checking their weapons and equipment. But before Elon could speak, Tesla suddenly bolted ahead, her body low to the ground, her senses on high alert. Elon! Kevin shouted, but it was too late. Tesla had already crossed the threshold, disappearing into the shadows of the facility. Damn it, Elon cursed, his pulse racing. Without thinking, he ran after her, his team following close behind. Inside the facility, the air was thick with tension. The walls were lined with strange, unfamiliar equipment, machines and monitors that looked decades ahead of anything he had ever seen. But what caught his attention most was the glowing symbols on the walls, symbols that seemed to pulse with an almost unnatural energy. And in the center of the room, standing in front of a massive control panel, was a figure that Elon had not expected to see, the mysterious man who had been following him. The figure turned toward him, his eyes glowing with an almost eerie intensity. Tesla stood beside him, her fur bristling, but not in aggression. She was standing at attention, as if she recognized the figure. Elon Musk, the man said, his voice calm and controlled. We've been waiting for you. In that moment, the entire truth about the trial, the letters, and Tesla, everything, began to click into place. And Elon Musk knew that this was just the beginning of a much darker, more complex journey. The cold, metallic walls of the hidden facility felt like they were closing in on Elon Musk. His heart raced as he took in the scene before him, the strange man standing in front of a high-tech control panel, Tesla, his dog, silently standing by his side, and an overwhelming sense that everything he thought he knew was about to be turned upside down. Who are you? Elon asked, his voice steady but laced with disbelief. He glanced down at Tesla, whose eyes remained locked on the figure as if recognizing something he didn't. What was going on? The man took a deliberate step forward, his movements smooth and calculated. He was tall, with sharp features, dressed in a dark, nondescript suit that blended into the shadows of the facility. The most striking thing about him, however, was his eyes. They glowed faintly, like they held an intelligence that was both otherworldly and deeply familiar. My name is Daniel, the man said, his voice calm, almost soothing. And I've been watching you, Mr. Musk. Elon's stomach churned. Watching me? What's this all about? Why did you bring me here? What is this place? The man's lips curled into a faint smile. This is not just any place, Mr. Musk. This is where everything you've been working for, everything you've been trying to understand, comes together. You've been chasing the wrong answers all your life. But it's time you learned the truth. Elon took a step back, glancing at his team, who had positioned themselves around the room, eyes scanning every corner. They were alert, but no one dared to move too far. Tesla remained by his side, her growl a soft hum in the background. She didn't trust the man, and neither did Elon. The man, Daniel, gestured to the control panel behind him. The display flickered to life, revealing images of technologies Elon had never seen before, floating devices, intricate machines, and symbols that made no sense. There was something about them that seemed to hum with an energy, a kind of frequency that felt almost alive. This, Daniel said, his voice reverberating slightly, as though the very air carried a strange resonance, is the culmination of decades of research. We've been working on this for years, testing, refining, evolving. But it's only now that the pieces are finally falling into place. And you, Elon, you've been chosen to be a part of it. Elon's mind raced. Chosen? What did this man mean? Chosen for what? He asked, his voice sharper now, his curiosity bubbling to the surface. He needed answers, now. Daniel's eyes glowed brighter for a moment as if responding to Elon's urgency. You're not here by accident, Mr. Musk. There are things, technologies, knowledge, that have been hidden for centuries. Knowledge that could change everything. The letter you received, the one that brought you here, it wasn't a mistake. It was an invitation. Elon's breath caught in his throat. An invitation? By who? And why now? Daniel's smile widened, his gaze turning thoughtful, almost distant. By those who've been watching from the shadows. By those who have known about the true potential of humanity for much longer than you could imagine. And they've been waiting for someone with your intellect, your drive, your vision. Elon's chest tightened. This was starting to sound like something out of a science fiction novel. Was this a hoax? A conspiracy? Or something far more real, and far more dangerous, than he could grasp? And Tesla? Elon asked, his voice hesitant. Why is my dog involved in this? Daniel's smile faded, his eyes growing serious. Ah, Tesla. She's not just a dog, is she? You felt it too, haven't you? Her strange connection to you. Her presence when you needed it most. She's not just a pet. She's part of a much larger story, a story you've only just begun to understand. Elon stared at Tesla, who was standing still, her gaze unwavering, almost as if she was waiting for something. He hadn't thought much about it before, but now the realization hit him like a wave. Tesla wasn't just any dog, she was something more. But what? Before he could speak, Daniel raised his hand, signaling for him to stay quiet. Let me explain. There are secrets, Elon, buried beneath the surface of human history. Technologies, concepts, and knowledge so advanced that it would rewrite everything we think we know. And Tesla, she's been a key. Not just a companion, but a part of a larger system. The air in the room seemed to grow heavier as Daniel spoke. Tesla has been attuned to frequencies and energies that most humans can't perceive. She's not just reacting to things on a sensory level. She's tuned to a frequency, a connection between you, your work, and the very future of humanity. Elon felt his head spin. This is insane. What does he mean? But something in the back of his mind told him that Daniel wasn't lying. Tesla, her strange behavior, her uncanny ability to always be by his side when he needed her the most, it was all starting to make sense. But there was still so much left unexplained. Daniel continued. There are those who will do anything to stop this. They know that the information you've begun to uncover will lead to a shift, one they can't control. That's why the trial happened. That's why you received the letters. They knew you were close. And now, they're coming for you. Elon's pulse quickened. This was far bigger than he had ever imagined. The trial had been just the surface, a smokescreen to distract him. The letters had been part of a greater game, a game with rules he still didn't understand. Who's trying to stop me? Elon asked, his voice now a low growl. He wasn't afraid, but the stakes were clear. Someone powerful, dangerous, and shadowy was pulling the strings. Daniel's eyes glinted with something akin to pity. The people you trust the most. They've been compromised. And now, you have no choice but to trust your instincts. Elon's mind reeled. The people closest to him, the ones he relied on every day, could be enemies? Could they be working against him? And if so, who could he trust? Elon, Daniel continued, his voice steady but filled with warning, your journey from here on out will not be easy. You'll have to decide who you trust, what you believe, and how far you're willing to go. But know this, there is no going back. The weight of Daniel's words settled heavily on Elon's shoulders. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and fraught with unseen dangers. But one thing was clear, he had been chosen for something far greater than he had ever realized. And whether he liked it or not, Tesla had been a part of that something from the very beginning. Elon, it's time, Daniel said softly. Time for you to make your decision. Elon stood there, staring at Tesla, who met his gaze with an intensity that spoke volumes. There was no turning back now. With a deep breath, Elon nodded. All right. Let's see this through. And with that, the journey entered its final phase. The future of humanity, the secrets hidden in the desert, and the mysterious forces at play would all converge in the coming days. Elon Musk was no longer just a billionaire entrepreneur, he was at the heart of a story that would shape the future of the world. Elon Musk's mind was racing. As he followed Daniel deeper into the facility, the weight of the situation felt heavier with each passing second. Tesla, his loyal dog, walked just a few steps ahead, her movements cautious, yet purposeful. The strange connection between them had never been clearer, something about Tesla was different, and whatever that difference was, it was intricately tied to this mysterious underground facility and the enigmatic figure known as Daniel. Daniel led Elon and his team through a series of narrow, dimly lit hallways. The facility, while high-tech, had a cold, sterile atmosphere, its walls lined with technology Elon had only seen in the most advanced laboratories, perhaps in classified government projects or tucked away in research facilities no one ever visited. There were blinking screens, encrypted data streams, and machines humming with energy that made Elon feel like he was walking through the heart of something far beyond his comprehension. This way, Daniel said, his voice breaking the tense silence. He glanced over his shoulder at Elon, his face unreadable. We're about to see the heart of this operation. They came to a large steel door that stood in stark contrast to the rest of the facility's sleek design. The door looked older, more weathered, as if it had been there for decades, long before the cutting-edge technology that surrounded it. Daniel didn't hesitate. He swiped a small device from his pocket and pressed it against a scanner on the wall. A soft beep sounded, and the door slowly creaked open. The room inside was massive, about the size of a small warehouse. It was filled with high-tech equipment, rows of servers, and large machines that hummed with a strange, almost otherworldly energy. But what truly caught Elon's attention were the massive glass tanks positioned around the room. Inside the tanks, he could see strange, almost humanoid figures suspended in some sort of liquid. What is this? Elon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He couldn't look away from the tanks. The figures inside were unlike anything he had ever seen. Their bodies were covered in a sleek, metallic skin, their limbs elongated in ways that seemed almost unnatural. These are experiments, Daniel replied, his tone flat, emotionless. But they are not just experiments. They are part of something bigger. Something much bigger than you realize. Elon's stomach twisted as he stepped closer to one of the tanks, his gaze fixed on the figure inside. It was humanoid, but the face was featureless, smooth, and covered in some kind of silver sheen. It was as though the figure was made of some kind of material that Elon had never encountered before. It wasn't human, but it was eerily close. What are they? Elon asked, his voice shaky as he turned toward Daniel. What's going on here? Daniel's eyes glowed softly, the same strange intensity that had been in them since the moment they met. These are part of the evolution of humanity, Elon. We've been trying to unlock something, beyond what we know. Beyond human limitations. Elon was speechless for a moment, his mind trying to process the enormity of what Daniel was implying. Beyond human limitations. Was this what they had been working toward all these years, creating something greater than human beings? But why? And for what purpose? These beings, Daniel continued, are part of a larger project. They are not human, but they hold the key to unlocking the next phase of human evolution. We've been manipulating genetic material, experimenting with bioengineering, and using cutting-edge technologies to accelerate the process. The results are incredible. But they come at a cost. Elon's breath caught in his throat. The weight of the situation was hitting him like a ton of bricks. These figures, these creatures, whatever they were, represented something far more dangerous than he had ever anticipated. And to make matters worse, Elon had just learned that he was part of this. He was the key to it all. But what part was he meant to play in this? Are you telling me, Elon said slowly, his voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and anger, that you've been playing with people's lives? That you're creating these things? Daniel met his gaze with an eerie calm. It's not as simple as that, Elon. These beings are not people. They are the future. And they will bring about a new era for humanity, one where we are no longer bound by our primitive biology. We will transcend our limitations and become something greater. Elon's mind raced as he tried to make sense of what Daniel was saying. Transcend. New era. The idea of pushing humanity beyond its limitations sounded like something out of a dystopian nightmare. But that's what this facility was, a breeding ground for something beyond human comprehension, beyond ethics. But at what cost? Elon asked, his voice barely a whisper. How many lives have you ruined in the process? Daniel's expression remained unchanged. Not ruined, Mr. Musk. Evolved. There is no such thing as progress without sacrifice. The human race can't move forward without shedding its old skin. We are on the brink of a new beginning. And you, he paused, you will be at the center of it all. Elon felt his knees grow weak. He was standing at the precipice of something so far beyond what he had ever imagined. The trial, the letters, Tesla's strange connection, it was all leading him here, to this moment. And now, he had to make a choice. You've been trying to control everything, haven't you? Elon's voice was steady now, but his anger was bubbling just beneath the surface. Trying to manipulate the future for your own gain. Daniel didn't flinch. It's not about control, Elon. It's about survival. The human race is on the brink of destruction. The climate crisis, wars, diseases, there are forces beyond our comprehension threatening to wipe us out. The only way to survive is to evolve. To adapt. And this, he gestured to the tanks, is the answer. Elon clenched his fists. You're playing God. Someone has to, Daniel said, his voice almost sympathetic. And we believe you're the one who can help us lead the way. The room fell into silence. Elon stood there, taking it all in. Tesla sat by his side, her eyes locked on the figures in the tanks, her posture still and alert. It was as if she understood something he didn't, like she knew this was only the beginning of something even darker, something far more complex than he could fathom. Elon's mind was reeling. The man standing before him, the twisted project, the strange connection with Tesla, it was all part of a grand plan, a plan that would change everything. And for the first time in his life, Elon Musk didn't know what to do next. Why me? Elon finally asked, his voice steady but laced with confusion. Why choose me to be a part of this? Daniel smiled again, his eyes glowing brighter. Because you're the key. You've always been the key. Elon didn't have a clue what that meant, but he knew one thing for sure, the moment he walked into this facility, there was no turning back. Elon's mind was a storm of thoughts, racing at a speed he couldn't control. He had always prided himself on his ability to think through problems logically, to see patterns where others couldn't, to push forward against obstacles, no matter how insurmountable they appeared. But this? This was different. This wasn't just another challenge to overcome, it was a shift in the very fabric of what he believed to be reality. He looked around the vast, cold room again, his eyes falling on the tanks and the strange figures suspended inside them. These beings were not human. They were something more. But what was their purpose? And why had Daniel brought him here? The questions gnawed at him, but the more he thought about them, the more the pieces seemed to slip further out of his grasp. Tesla, standing silently by his side, was a constant presence. She was calm, but Elon could see the tension in her posture. It was as if she was warning him, alerting him to something he didn't fully understand. Her strange connection to him was clearer than ever. He had always known she was special, but now, in this moment, he realized just how deep that connection went. Elon glanced at Daniel. The man's eyes were glowing, almost hypnotically, as if they were pulling him in. There was an almost unsettling confidence in his demeanor. Elon felt like he was being manipulated, and yet, there was something compelling about what Daniel was saying. Something that resonated deep inside of him, no matter how much he wanted to reject it. "You've been studying these creatures for years?" Elon asked, his voice quieter than he intended. He didn't know why, but he felt like he had to ask this question. There was something about Daniel's tone, about the way he spoke, that made it seem like there was more to the story than he had revealed. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, we've been studying them for decades. We've been gathering data, learning from them, improving the technology, the biology, the very essence of life itself. The beings in those tanks are only the beginning. They're the first successful prototype, the first step toward a new era. The next step is you." Elon frowned, his mind struggling to piece together the implications. "The next step is me," he repeated, his voice tinged with disbelief. "What do you mean?" Daniel's smile was faint but unwavering. "You've already started the process, Elon. Through your work with SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, you've been unknowingly laying the groundwork for what we're about to do. Your technologies, your ideas, they're the foundation. And now, it's time for you to take the next step with us. To truly evolve, to transcend the limitations of your biology." Elon stepped back, his heart pounding in his chest. "You want me to become one of them, don't you?" Daniel's eyes flickered for a moment. "Not just one of them, Elon. We want you to be the bridge. The one who can unite humanity's potential with the future we're building. The power we're harnessing here could reshape everything. And you, with your understanding of technology, your intellect, your vision, you're the key to unlocking it." Elon's head swirled with confusion. He had always been driven by the idea of advancing humanity, of exploring new frontiers, but this was different. This wasn't about pushing boundaries, it was about crossing them. About becoming something other. Something that might no longer be human. "I don't want to be part of this," Elon said firmly, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. "I won't be a part of some twisted experiment. You can't just force me into this." Daniel didn't react immediately. He simply watched Elon, his eyes unwavering, as if waiting for him to understand. Finally, he spoke, his voice slow and deliberate. "I didn't bring you here to force you into anything, Elon. I brought you here because you have a choice. You can choose to stand with us, to embrace the future we're offering. Or you can walk away. But know this, the world as you know it is on the brink of collapse. The changes we're making are the only chance humanity has left. This isn't just about evolution, it's about survival." Elon's heart raced, a mix of fear, anger, and uncertainty surging through him. The weight of Daniel's words hung in the air, suffocating him. Survival? The world was on the brink of collapse, sure. But at what cost? Was it worth sacrificing humanity's essence to ensure its survival? "What if I don't want to be part of this?" Elon asked, his voice trembling, but with a sense of determination that surprised even him. "What if I can't accept this path you're offering?" Daniel's eyes softened, but there was no mistaking the finality in his words. Then you will be left behind. The future waits for no one, Elon. If you choose to reject it, you will become irrelevant. The world will move on without you. The words hit Elon like a slap to the face. Irrelevant? He had spent his entire life working to shape the future, to change the world for the better. And now, Daniel was telling him that if he didn't fall in line with their twisted vision, he would be cast aside, rendered obsolete. Tesla's growl brought Elon out of his spiraling thoughts. He looked down at her, her eyes narrowed, her body tense. It was as if she could sense the weight of the decision he was facing. She stepped closer, her presence grounding him in the chaos of his mind. For a moment, he allowed himself to feel her calming influence. Tesla, Elon murmured, his voice soft. I know you're trying to tell me something, but I don't understand. Tesla's gaze softened, and for a brief moment, it was as if she understood the very core of his soul. She didn't need words to communicate with him. The bond they shared, the connection between them, was something beyond explanation. It was in the way she looked at him, the way she stood by his side no matter what. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. It was clear that the choice before him wasn't just about the survival of the human race, it was about something far deeper. It was about what it meant to be human. I can't make this decision now, Elon said, his voice firm. I need time to think. Daniel didn't argue. He simply nodded, as if this was what he had expected all along. Take all the time you need, Elon. But remember, time is running out. The future waits for no one. As the door to the room closed behind him, Elon felt the weight of the decision ahead of him. What Daniel was offering was a future that no one had ever seen before. But was it a future worth pursuing? And if he rejected it, what would that mean for the world, and for Tesla? Elon didn't have all the answers. But one thing was certain, the path he chose now would change everything. The days following his visit to the underground facility felt like they were passing in a haze. Elon couldn't shake the images of the creatures in the tanks, their sleek, metallic forms haunting his every waking moment. What Daniel had said echoed in his mind, the future waits for no one. It was a simple statement, but the weight of it was suffocating. There were moments when Elon would catch himself staring out of the windows of his office at Tesla, or in his study at SpaceX, lost in thought, wondering if this was the beginning of something that was both beyond his control and understanding. Tesla had been more distant than usual, too. She had always been there, a constant presence by his side, but lately, there was a quiet intensity in her gaze, as though she knew something he didn't. Her protective instincts were in overdrive, almost as if she was warning him about something in his path he hadn't seen yet. Elon didn't know whether to be comforted or disturbed by her behavior. There were times when he felt she understood the weight of his decision more deeply than he did. The phone call came on the fourth day after his visit to the facility. Elon, it's Daniel. The voice on the other end was calm, unhurried, but there was a hint of urgency underneath. I'm giving you some time to think, but the clock is ticking. The project is moving forward. We need you. Elon leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming against the surface of his desk. I've been thinking about it, he said, his voice even. But I'm still not sure. There's too much I don't understand about what you're offering, Daniel. Too many unknowns. A slight chuckle came through the line. That's normal. Everyone is afraid of the unknown, Elon. But the unknown is the only thing that offers progress. And I promise you, you won't have to go through this alone. We've mapped out every step. This isn't a leap of faith, it's a calculated evolution. A calculated evolution. Elon's mind churned with the words, the implications of them. There was something chilling about the way Daniel framed it all, as though he truly believed the world needed to be remade. What if he's right? Elon thought. What if humanity does need to evolve, or else we're doomed? The silence stretched between them before Daniel spoke again. You have a unique perspective on this, Elon. You've spent your life working toward the future, pushing the boundaries of space, technology, and energy. This is the next frontier. And Tesla, he paused, as though weighing his words carefully. Tesla is more important than you think. At the mention of his dog's name, Elon felt a chill run down his spine. His mind flashed back to the strange connection he had felt between him and Tesla, especially in the facility, where it had seemed like she understood more about the project than he did. But there was also something unsettling about it. Tesla wasn't just a dog, she was something more. Something he hadn't yet fully understood. What do you mean by that? Elon asked, his voice laced with suspicion. What is Tesla's role in all of this? She's more than just a companion to you, Elon, Daniel said, his voice smooth, almost hypnotic. She's the link. The missing piece to unlocking the full potential of what we're doing. You and she share a bond that goes beyond anything I've ever seen. She's not just connected to you, she's connected to the evolution we're aiming for. It's why we brought her into this. She's crucial to the future we're creating. Elon's breath hitched. The idea of Tesla being part of something as profound, and potentially dangerous, as what Daniel was describing unsettled him more than anything else. How do you know all of this? Elon asked, his voice growing sharper. How do you know what she's capable of? I've been observing, Daniel replied, his tone almost too casual. We've been monitoring your work, your relationship with Tesla, for some time now. It's all part of the plan. You've been unknowingly preparing for this moment, just as she has. Elon shook his head, trying to make sense of the situation. This sounds insane. You're telling me my dog has been part of some plan? What do you expect me to do with this information? Embrace it, Elon. You're part of something much bigger than you realize. And Tesla, she's the key to bridging the gap. Don't fight it. Elon was silent for a long moment. His mind raced with everything he'd learned in the past few days. The idea of Tesla being more than just a dog, more than a loyal companion, was something he couldn't fully accept. But the evidence, her odd behavior, her protective instincts, the way she seemed to understand things he couldn't, suggested that there was more to her than met the eye. I'll think about it, Elon said, his voice low. But I need more time. I need to understand what's really going on. Daniel didn't press. Of course. Take all the time you need. But remember, time is running out. The line went dead, and Elon sat back in his chair, the weight of the conversation settling in his chest like a stone. The unknown had always been a driving force in his life, whether it was the unknown of space or the unknowns of technology. But this? This was different. This was something that seemed to defy everything he understood about science, humanity, and the natural world. He stood up abruptly, the decision pressing down on him like a physical force. I need answers. I can't do this on my own, he thought. I need someone I trust. With a sense of urgency, Elon grabbed his coat and headed for the door. Tesla, sensing his movement, trotted over to his side, her eyes watching him intently. Come on, girl, Elon said softly, as if speaking to her was a way of grounding himself in the storm of his thoughts. Let's go find out what's really going on. Elon drove through the city, his mind racing with the implications of the conversation he'd just had. Tesla sat quietly in the passenger seat, her eyes fixed on him, as if she understood the gravity of the situation. Elon's destination was clear, he needed to visit someone who could help him make sense of all of this. He needed to talk to someone who had the expertise and perspective he trusted, someone who could help him understand if this project was really as revolutionary as Daniel claimed, or if it was a dangerous delusion. As he turned onto the street leading to the research facility of his friend, Dr. Amelia Richter, Elon couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. And whatever decision he made next, it would change everything. Elon parked his car outside the modest research facility where Dr. Amelia Richter had been working for years. The facility looked quiet, almost serene against the backdrop of the darkening sky, but Elon knew better. Amelia's mind was one of the sharpest he'd ever known. Her ability to see through complex problems and her unrelenting drive for the truth had made her one of the foremost experts in neurobiology and artificial intelligence. If anyone could help him make sense of what was happening, it was her. Tesla, as always, was by his side. She stood alert as Elon made his way toward the entrance, her head tilted slightly as if she, too, sensed the urgency in the air. Elon smiled at her, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Too much was on the line. And Tesla, somehow, knew that. As he entered the facility, the familiar sterile scent of labs filled the air. Amelia was in her usual spot, deep in thought, sitting at a desk piled high with research papers and data sheets. Her glasses, perched on the bridge of her nose, caught the light in the dim room. When she looked up and saw Elon standing there, her face lit up with a rare smile, though it quickly faded when she saw the tension in his eyes. "Elon," Amelia said softly, pushing her chair back to stand. "I wasn't expecting you. What's going on?" Without waiting for an invitation, Elon walked over to her desk, his mind racing. He glanced at the computer screen in front of her, where complex neural networks and genetic sequencing data flashed by in rapid succession. Her research was as far-reaching as ever, but today, it wasn't just about technology or biology, it was about something much more personal. "I need your help, Amelia," Elon said, his voice steady but heavy with weight. "I've gotten myself into something I don't fully understand. And I need to know if I'm being pulled into something dangerous, or if I'm being offered a genuine breakthrough." Amelia raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the serious tone in his voice. "You're scaring me a little. What are you talking about?" Elon took a deep breath and explained everything that had happened over the past few days, the meeting with Daniel, the underground facility, the strange creatures in the tanks, and the cryptic message about Tesla being part of something far bigger than he had ever imagined. He told her about Daniel's insistence that Tesla was the key, and about his own growing doubts and confusion. As he spoke, Amelia listened intently, her brow furrowing in concentration. She was always a person of science, and though she had heard some strange theories and had been involved in some unorthodox projects in the past, nothing seemed to align with the sense of dread and uncertainty Elon felt. When he finished, she remained silent for a moment, absorbing everything he had just shared. Then, with a slow exhale, she looked up at him. "Elon, this is a lot," Amelia began, her voice measured. "But I'm going to tell you what I think, and you can take it however you want. The stuff you're describing, it sounds like an advanced form of genetic engineering, possibly intertwined with neurobiology and artificial intelligence. But the thing that sticks out to me the most, more than anything, is Tesla." Elon tensed slightly at her words. He had been hoping for some clarity, not more confusion. "What do you mean by that?" he asked, his voice edged with skepticism. Amelia pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose and leaned forward. "Elon, you know I've been researching bioengineering for years now. The possibilities of merging artificial intelligence with biological systems are fascinating, but they're also dangerous. If Tesla is truly connected to this project, and if Daniel is right about her being the key, then you're dealing with something that could be more than just technology. It could be a manipulation of biology and consciousness on a level we don't fully comprehend." Elon felt a chill run down his spine. The word manipulation hung in the air like an ominous shadow, casting doubt on everything he had believed about the project. "Manipulation of biology?" Elon echoed, his voice shaking slightly. "Are you saying that Tesla isn't just a dog? That she's part of some experiment?" Amelia met his gaze with a seriousness that struck him to his core. "That's what I'm saying, Elon. If Daniel and his team are working with something that advanced, and if they're telling you that Tesla has a key role to play, well, I think you need to consider what that actually means. Are they trying to manipulate her in ways that go beyond your understanding? If they've been watching you both, if they've been observing your bond, it's possible they've engineered something more. Something synthetic. Elon's heart raced. The idea of Tesla being anything other than what she was, his loyal companion, his protector, was almost too much to bear. Tesla was more than just a pet. She was his constant, his anchor in a world of overwhelming demands. He couldn't accept the possibility that she was a tool, a mere cog in a machine he didn't understand. But Amelia's words continued to echo in his mind, unrelenting. What if she's right? What if Tesla had been part of something bigger all along, and he hadn't known it? What if the connection they shared wasn't just a natural bond, but something engineered? Something they had never intended for him to discover. I don't know if I can accept that, Elon said quietly, shaking his head. She's more than just a subject of an experiment. She's my family. Amelia softened, understanding the pain behind his words. She placed a gentle hand on his arm. I know, Elon. But you have to ask yourself, what happens if they're right? What happens if you're on the brink of discovering something that could change the entire course of humanity, something that could save us from the brink of collapse? Would you still refuse it, even if it meant risking everything you know? The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Elon felt a wave of unease wash over him. What if this was it? What if this was the answer? The idea of transcending the limits of human biology, of advancing into a new era of consciousness and technology, was both terrifying and thrilling. But at what cost? He looked down at Tesla, who sat patiently by his side, her eyes watching him with a quiet understanding. Her presence was a comfort, but it was also a reminder of the stakes he was facing. Whatever decision he made would not only affect his future, it would affect hers too. I need to see this through, Elon said, his voice firm now, though uncertainty still clung to his every word. I need to understand what's really going on. And I need you to help me, Amelia. You're the only one who can help me figure this out. Amelia nodded slowly, her eyes filled with both concern and resolve. All right, Elon. I'll help you. But we need to be careful. If you're going up against someone like Daniel, someone with that kind of influence, we need to be prepared for anything. This could get dangerous. Elon's gaze hardened. He knew that all too well. Whatever lay ahead, he wasn't going to back down. With a final look at Tesla, Elon made up his mind. He was going to find the answers, no matter where they led him. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The hours following his conversation with Dr. Amelia Richter passed in a blur. Elon's thoughts raced as he sat in the comfort of his office, staring out over the sprawling cityscape of Los Angeles. His mind was torn between two worlds, one grounded in reality, where Tesla was just his loyal companion, a creature of flesh and bone, and the other, where Tesla might be something far more complex, a part of a larger scheme he hadn't even begun to comprehend. The thought was unsettling, almost terrifying. He turned to look at Tesla, who sat at the door, her eyes fixed on him. There was something about the way she watched him, something almost knowing, as though she could feel the weight of his thoughts. Elon shook his head. He couldn't let himself fall into paranoia. Tesla was family, and that's what he had to focus on, protecting her, protecting their bond. But he also knew that he couldn't ignore the reality of what Daniel had said. The project, the underground facility, the cryptic message about Tesla, there was something far deeper at play, and if he was to make a decision about it, he needed to understand the truth. Elon, you're overthinking it, Amelia had told him earlier. The project is complex, but if anyone can untangle it, it's you. That was true, of course. He'd spent his life building companies that reshaped industries. He'd always looked at problems as puzzles, challenges to be solved with logic and creativity. But this was different. This wasn't about rockets, electric cars, or artificial intelligence. This was about the very essence of life itself. The phone rang, dragging him from his reverie. It was Daniel. Elon, Daniel's voice came through, smooth and confident. I've been thinking about our conversation. I understand your hesitation, but I need you to understand, this isn't just about Tesla. This is about the future of humanity. I know it's hard to grasp, but it's something you're uniquely positioned to help shape. Elon's grip tightened on the receiver. You keep saying that. But what exactly is this future you're talking about, Daniel? You keep talking about evolution, but you haven't explained what that really means. What exactly is your goal here? There was a brief silence on the other end, before Daniel responded, his voice tinged with amusement. You've always been driven by the idea of pushing humanity forward, Elon. This is just another step, a leap into the future that we're already on the brink of. Think of it as an evolution of both technology and biology, seamlessly integrated. It's something we've been working on for years. A chill ran down Elon's spine. And Tesla? How does she fit into all of this? She's more than just a dog, Elon, Daniel's voice softened, but it held an underlying seriousness that made Elon's skin crawl. She's the key. You know that bond you have with her? The one that's unlike anything you've ever had with any other creature. It's not an accident. It's part of the design. She's connected to something larger. Something that could change the way we think about intelligence, consciousness, and even life itself. Elon could barely breathe. His hands shook as he processed Daniel's words. You're telling me you've been manipulating her? That she's not just a dog? I'm not saying she's not a dog, Daniel replied quickly, his tone almost patronizing. I'm saying she's a special kind of dog. She's connected to a system we've been developing. And that connection? It's crucial. We can't do this without you both. The thought was too much to bear. Tesla wasn't just a companion, she was something they had engineered. Elon felt a sharp pang of betrayal, but at the same time, he couldn't deny the strange connection they shared. The way Tesla had acted at the facility, her strange protectiveness, was it possible she had been designed for something more than just companionship? He closed his eyes, trying to calm the storm inside his head. I need to see it for myself. I need to understand what you're doing. I need answers. I was hoping you'd say that, Daniel said, his voice tinged with satisfaction. I'll arrange for you to see the full operation. Tomorrow. You'll get a first-hand look at what we've been building, and you'll understand why Tesla is central to all of this. Elon felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. It wasn't just the information, it was the feeling that he was being pulled into something bigger than he could control. Something he wasn't sure he was ready for. Fine, Elon said, his voice tight. But I'm bringing someone with me. I need someone I trust. I understand, Daniel replied smoothly. But I think you'll find that once you see it, you'll understand why we're doing this. The line went dead, and Elon stood there, the weight of the conversation heavy in the air. Tesla was by his side in an instant, her presence a small comfort in the face of the storm brewing around him. He turned to her, kneeling down to scratch behind her ears. I don't know what they've done to you, girl, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. But we'll figure this out. Together. Tesla's eyes met his, and for a moment, he felt as though she understood every word he said. She nuzzled his hand, as though offering him some silent reassurance. Elon stood up, the decision made. He needed answers, and he was going to get them, no matter what it took. He grabbed his coat and made his way to the door, but before he could step out, his phone buzzed again. It was Amelia. Elon, I've been doing some research. I looked into some of Daniel's past work, and I think I found something you need to know. His heart raced. He didn't want to hear it, didn't want to know if it would make things even worse. But he had to. What is it? He asked, his voice edged with impatience. His work with genetic manipulation, it's not just cutting edge, it's dangerous. There are reports, whispers about experiments that went too far. Some say he's been playing with forces he doesn't fully understand. Whatever he's promising you, Elon, it's not just revolutionary. It's unpredictable. And it might cost you more than you're willing to give. Elon felt a chill seep into his bones. This wasn't just about Tesla. This was about everything. And Amelia was right. He had to go in with his eyes wide open. "I'll be careful," he said, though even he didn't believe his own words. The future was about to collide with the present, and no matter how much he tried to avoid it, he knew he was already in too deep. The next morning, Elon found himself standing in front of a towering facility, far removed from the gleaming, polished tech headquarters he was used to. This place felt different. It was isolated, hidden deep in a dense forest on the outskirts of the city, tucked away from prying eyes. The towering building loomed like an ancient fortress, shrouded in secrecy. Elon's gut tightened as he observed the place from the car window. Tesla was in the back seat, her gaze unwavering, as if she, too, sensed the gravity of the situation. She hadn't said much, then again, she never did, but her silence spoke volumes. Elon reached back to scratch her behind the ears, though his touch was absent, distracted by the thought of what he was about to face. Amelia's warning echoed in his mind, "Whatever he's promising you, Elon, it's not just revolutionary. It's unpredictable." He tried to push the thought away, but it lingered, like a shadow hovering just over his shoulder. "Are you sure about this?" Amelia had asked the night before when they discussed the plans. "I don't have a choice," Elon had replied. This is bigger than any of us. If we can understand it, maybe we can control it. I have to see it for myself." But now, standing outside the imposing entrance to the facility, he wasn't so sure. A black car pulled up beside his, and Daniel stepped out, looking more confident than ever. His immaculate suit was pressed perfectly, and his posture exuded an unsettling calmness as he approached Elon. His eyes flickered to Tesla, who remained calm in the back seat, before he gave Elon a small, knowing smile. "I'm glad you decided to come," Daniel said smoothly, walking toward him. "I understand how difficult this must be to process, but trust me, what we're working on here could change the world." Elon nodded, but his mind was elsewhere, trying to wrap his head around the immense weight of this moment. He had come here seeking answers, but he knew he would be walking into a maze of deception and complexity. "I'm here to see the truth, Daniel," Elon said, his voice steady, though there was an edge to it. "I need to understand exactly what's going on and how Tesla fits into all of this." Tesla stirred in the back seat, as though sensing the tension in the air. Her ears perked, and she gave a soft whine, a reminder of how much she had always meant to him. Elon turned around and gave her a reassuring pat before stepping out of the car. It was time to face the unknown. They entered the facility together. The first thing that struck him was the smell, sterile, metallic, cold. It wasn't the clean scent of high-tech innovation, it was something far more clinical, far more unsettling. The hallways were dimly lit, and the walls were lined with thick glass panels, some of which were cracked or hazy, obscuring the view inside. Elon's heart rate increased, and Tesla seemed to sense his unease, stepping closer to him as they walked deeper into the facility. He tried to ignore the growing sense of dread and focused on Daniel, who was leading the way, speaking over his shoulder. "This facility is dedicated to the next phase of human evolution," Daniel said, his voice calm and persuasive. "We're merging the boundaries between biology and artificial intelligence. Imagine a world where consciousness and technology are one. Where beings like Tesla, creatures that bond so deeply with humans, become the central piece of a new reality." Elon didn't respond immediately. His mind was racing as he processed the words, trying to make sense of them. Tesla had always been special to him, but to hear that her bond with him might be part of a larger, engineered plan felt like a betrayal. Finally, they arrived at a heavy, reinforced door. Daniel turned to Elon, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. "This is it. What I'm about to show you is the culmination of years of work. It's not just about creating a new technology, Elon. It's about reshaping humanity's future, and it starts with Tesla. He stepped aside, allowing Elon to enter first. The door opened, and the air was thick with anticipation. Inside, the room was vast, an industrial chamber filled with equipment Elon couldn't even begin to identify. There were large tanks lining the walls, each filled with a fluid that seemed to shimmer unnaturally. Some of the tanks had creatures floating inside, but it wasn't the creatures themselves that caught his attention, it was the wires, the electrodes, and the intricate machinery that was plugged into them, as if they were being studied or altered. His stomach churned. Daniel, sensing Elon's discomfort, spoke again, his voice suddenly quieter. "These are the prototypes, Elon. These are the first test subjects for the next generation of beings. They're designed to be the bridge between the organic and the digital." Elon's eyes flicked from one tank to another, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Some of the creatures inside the tanks looked almost human. Their features were disturbingly familiar, but they were also wrong, twisted, altered, and yet, still somehow alive. The air was thick with the hum of machines, and the only sound was the slow bubbling of the fluid in the tanks. "You're telling me this is the future?" Elon asked, his voice harsh. "These things? You've been experimenting on living beings?" Daniel's expression remained calm, but there was a flicker of something else in his eyes, something that Elon couldn't quite place. "We're not experimenting on them, Elon," Daniel corrected, his tone patronizing. "We're perfecting them. We're creating the future. You've always talked about improving humanity. Well, this is how we do it. This is the next logical step." Elon stepped closer to one of the tanks, his mind whirling. The figures inside, their human features combined with something distinctly otherworldly, filled him with a sense of dread. But what struck him most was the connection he felt to them, an eerie recognition. The bond between these creatures and Tesla wasn't as far removed as Daniel had made it seem. "This is what you meant by evolution," Elon said quietly, his voice tight with disbelief. "You're not creating life, Daniel. You're manipulating it." Daniel took a step forward, his gaze unwavering. "We're evolving it, Elon. And this is just the beginning. Tesla was the starting point. She has a unique connection with you, but there are others who can reach this next stage, who can help us break the boundaries of biology and technology." Tesla growled lowly beside him, her hackles raised. Elon could feel her unease, her distrust of the place, and it only deepened his own. His heart pounded as he looked at Daniel, realizing that the stakes were far higher than he had ever imagined. "I don't think you fully understand what you're asking me to do, Daniel," Elon said, his voice now icy. "This isn't evolution. This is experimentation. And I don't intend to be a part of it." Daniel's smile faded, and for the first time, Elon saw a flicker of frustration in his eyes. "You're still missing the point, Elon. You and Tesla are the key. You're already more connected than you know. But we can take that connection further. We can make something even greater. Something that will reshape the world." Elon stood tall, his resolve solidifying. He knew that what Daniel was offering wasn't progress, it was a trap. He turned to Tesla, meeting her gaze. "We're leaving," he said firmly. "This ends now." Tesla growled again, a fierce protectiveness in her stance, and Elon felt a surge of determination course through him. Whatever this place was, whatever Daniel had planned, Elon wasn't going to let it control him, or Tesla, any longer. They turned and walked out, knowing the battle wasn't over, it had only just begun. The drive back to his home felt like a blur. Elon barely registered the passing landscape as the car sped along the road, his thoughts consumed by what he had witnessed inside the facility. The images of the tanks, the altered creatures, and Daniel's words about evolution and control echoed in his mind, drowning out the world around him. Tesla sat quietly in the back seat, her presence grounding him, but even her calm demeanor couldn't quell the storm raging inside him. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white from the force of his hold. He couldn't shake the feeling that something far darker was at play, something that threatened to undo everything he had worked for, everything he believed in. Amelia's warning echoed in his thoughts. This isn't just about Tesla. This is about the future of humanity. But was it really? Or was it about something much more personal? Was Daniel manipulating him, using Tesla to manipulate the future in ways he couldn't fully understand? The car finally pulled into his driveway, and Elon came to a screeching halt. He didn't even wait for the car to come to a complete stop before he jumped out, his feet hitting the ground in quick succession. Tesla followed closely behind, her instincts attuned to his every move. He stormed into his house, slamming the door behind him, his mind racing as he tried to piece together the puzzle in his mind. Tesla trotted beside him, her tail low, sensing her owner's agitation. "Elon, slow down." Amelia's voice came from the hallway, and he barely registered her presence as he strode toward the living room. She appeared in front of him, a concerned expression on her face. "What happened in there?" Elon stopped abruptly, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. "It's worse than I thought, Amelia. He's not just playing with technology. He's playing with life itself. And Tesla, she's at the center of it." Amelia frowned, her brow furrowing. "I don't understand. What did you see in there?" Elon sank into a nearby chair, running his hand through his hair. "I saw things, creatures that were part human, part something else. And Daniel, he wants to push this further. He believes Tesla and I are the key to unlocking this next phase, something that blends biology and technology." Tesla sat beside him, her eyes fixed on him, and for a brief moment, Elon could have sworn he saw a flicker of understanding in her gaze. It was as if she knew exactly what he was feeling, the weight of the decision that lay ahead. "I don't know if I can trust him anymore, Amelia," Elon admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "What if this goes too far? What if Tesla is more than just a companion, more than just a dog?" Amelia sat beside him, her expression softening. "You've known Tesla longer than anyone. You've trusted her with your life. Do you really think she's anything but your dog?" Elon closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. "I don't know anymore. What if everything I believed in is wrong? What if I've been blind to something darker?" Amelia reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not blind, Elon. You're just caught in the middle of something much bigger than yourself. But you still have a choice. You don't have to follow Daniel. You don't have to let him control you." The words hit him like a slap to the face. He knew she was right. He had always been about choice, the freedom to build, to create, to shape his own destiny. But now, he was standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path would lead to salvation and which one would plunge him into darkness. "I have to stop this," he said, his voice firming with resolve. "I can't let him use Tesla. I won't let him turn her into whatever he's planning." Amelia nodded. "Then we need to take action. We need to stop him before it's too late. But we can't do it alone. You'll need help, and I think I know just the people who can give you that." Elon's heart beat faster. "Who?" Amelia's eyes narrowed with determination. "We're going to need someone on the inside. Someone who knows Daniel's operation better than anyone else." Elon stood up, his mind already working. "Who do you have in mind?" Amelia hesitated, her lips pressed tightly together. Then, she spoke. "I think it's time we brought in Sasha." The name hit Elon like a bolt of lightning. Sasha. She had been a former colleague at SpaceX, brilliant and resourceful, but she had left under mysterious circumstances. Elon hadn't heard from her in years, and he had always wondered what had happened to her. The idea of reaching out to her now felt like stepping into the unknown. "Sasha?" Elon repeated, his voice thick with disbelief. "I haven't spoken to her in years." What makes you think she'll help? Amelia's eyes locked with his, unwavering. Because she's one of the few people who understands the kind of work Daniel is doing. She left because of it. I'm sure she's been watching. We just need to find her and convince her to help. Elon hesitated, torn between the weight of the decision and the urgency of their situation. He knew he couldn't take on Daniel alone. But could he really trust Sasha? Could he trust anyone at this point? Finally, he nodded, his jaw set with determination. All right. Let's find her. And if she's willing to help, we'll need to move fast. That night, after Tesla had been put to bed, Elon spent hours combing through old records and trying to track down Sasha. It was like searching for a needle in a haystack, but he couldn't afford to waste time. The clock was ticking, and Daniel was growing more dangerous with every passing moment. By the time dawn broke, Elon finally had a lead. A number. A location. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He was going to find Sasha, no matter the cost. The next morning, he set out, leaving Amelia and Tesla behind for the time being. His car sped down the road, heading for a remote part of town that Elon had only vaguely remembered. This was a place Sasha had frequented when she was part of the team at SpaceX, a quiet, unassuming cafe where they used to meet to talk about breakthroughs and the future. When he arrived, the place was just as he remembered, dimly lit, with a faint smell of coffee hanging in the air. It was deserted, save for a single figure sitting in the far corner. Sasha. She hadn't changed much. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail, and her eyes, sharp and calculating, met his as he entered. She didn't smile, but there was a glint of recognition in her gaze. "You're a hard man to find, Musk," Sasha said, her voice low and steady. "But not impossible." Elon approached slowly, not entirely sure what to expect. "I need your help, Sasha. I'm in over my head, and I think you know exactly what I'm up against." Sasha didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a slow sip from her coffee, her eyes never leaving his. After what seemed like an eternity, she set the cup down and spoke. "I figured it was only a matter of time before you came to me. What's the deal, Elon?" Elon leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel. He's not what he seems. And Tesla, she's at the center of it all." Sasha's expression hardened. "I knew it." She stood up, her voice cold and decisive. "All right, Musk. You've got my attention. Let's take this down. Together." Elon sat across from Sasha in the dimly lit cafe, the tension between them palpable. It had been years since they'd worked together, but now, more than ever, he needed her sharp mind and unflinching resolve. Sasha had been the one to leave the shadows of the SpaceX team behind, disillusioned, skeptical of the very systems they had built. Elon had never fully understood why she left, but now it made sense. She had seen the same signs he was seeing, the ones that told him everything was about to spiral out of control. "So, what exactly is Daniel doing with Tesla?" Sasha's voice cut through the silence, bringing Elon back to the present. Elon leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he tried to put the pieces together. "It's all tied to something bigger than Tesla, something Daniel's been working on in secret for years. This project. It's supposed to be a fusion of technology and biology, pushing the boundaries of what humans and machines can become together." Sasha's face twisted in disbelief, her brows furrowing. "A fusion? Are you saying he's been experimenting with hybrid beings, like cyborgs?" Elon nodded, the weight of the revelation making his throat feel tight. "Exactly. But not just cyborgs. More like artificial life forms. He's trying to turn them into something more than machines, something with consciousness, emotions, maybe even a soul. And Tesla is key to it all." Sasha sat back in her chair, crossing her arms. "That's insane. The man's playing God, Elon. I know, Elon replied, his voice heavy. But it's not just about him trying to create new life. It's about control. He wants to control consciousness itself. The way these creatures, these hybrid beings, connect with their human counterparts is the key to understanding how this new world would work. Tesla's not just a pet, Sasha. She's a link between the two worlds. Sasha was quiet for a moment, her gaze fixed on the table. So, you think he's been using Tesla as part of his experiment all along? Not just Tesla, Elon said. He's been manipulating the bond between humans and animals, using that connection as a foundation to build something bigger. Tesla's part of a plan to create something that can think and feel and even evolve alongside us. The words hung in the air, thick with the implications of what they meant. Sasha didn't say anything for a while, but Elon could see the wheels turning in her head. The same wheels he had been turning on his own, trying to figure out how to stop Daniel before it was too late. Finally, Sasha spoke, her voice low but resolute. I've seen enough to know that this isn't something you can just walk away from. You've got to stop him before he gets any further. And I'll help you do that. Elon's eyes met hers, grateful but also wary. How can I trust you, Sasha? I've been out of the loop for years. What do you know about Daniel's operation? Sasha sighed, rubbing her temples. I've been keeping an eye on him for a while. When I left SpaceX, I thought I was done with all this tech-driven chaos. But I knew Daniel was involved in something dangerous. I've had people watch him from the outside. That facility you visited? It's just the tip of the iceberg. He's been using that place to build an army of hybrid beings. But what you don't understand, Elon, is that Tesla is not the only one he's targeting. Elon blinked, confused. What do you mean? Who else is he after? Sasha leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm talking about people. People with unique connections to their animals. Tesla's just one piece of the puzzle. There are others out there, others who share a similar bond. And Daniel's been tracking them all. He's been using their relationships with their pets, their companions, as a way to tap into something greater. The realization hit Elon like a punch to the gut. He hadn't considered the full scale of Daniel's plans. He had thought Tesla was at the center of it all, but now, it was clear that this wasn't just about her. Daniel wanted something much bigger. He wanted to control not only Tesla, but the entire system of bonds between humans and animals. Is it possible? Elon asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and dread. Could he really control those bonds? Could he manipulate them to do his bidding? Sasha's eyes darkened. I don't know, but I know he's trying. And that's why we need to stop him now. Before he gets any further. Before he finds more people like you, more bonds like the one you have with Tesla. Elon rubbed his temples, his mind racing. The thought of what Daniel could do with that kind of power was terrifying. He had always known that Tesla was special, but this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. Okay, Elon said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. What's the plan? Sasha sat up, her eyes gleaming with purpose. We need to get inside that facility again. We need to gather evidence. But this time, we're not going in alone. I have contacts who can help us. People who've been tracking Daniel's operation. We can't do this without them. Elon nodded, feeling a spark of hope ignite within him. Let's do it. I'll gather everything I can on my end. But we need to move fast. Sasha stood up, reaching for her jacket. Agreed. We'll need to be strategic. We can't afford to get caught. If Daniel suspects anything, he'll shut us down before we even have a chance. Elon watched as she moved toward the door, his mind still reeling from the enormity of what they were about to attempt. This was no longer just about saving Tesla, it was about saving everything. Hours later, Elon and Sasha were on a flight to the outskirts of the facility once again, this time with a team of specialists who had agreed to help them infiltrate Daniel's operation. The flight was silent, save for the occasional whispered conversation between Sasha and the team members, but Elon couldn't stop thinking about the gravity of what they were about to do. Tesla, who had been quiet on the ride to the airport, lay beside him, her presence a steady comfort. He couldn't shake the feeling that their connection, that bond between them, was the key to everything, both the problem and the solution. As the plane touched down, the team prepared for what was to come. Elon felt a surge of adrenaline. The time for waiting was over. Now, it was time to act. They made their way to the facility under the cover of night, the plan already set into motion. As they approached the gates, Elon's heart pounded in his chest. The security was tight, but they had one advantage: they knew the inside better than anyone else. They just had to hope it would be enough. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and the team slipped inside, ready to face whatever Daniel had in store. The facility loomed ahead of them, its dark silhouette barely visible under the cover of the night. The security lights flickered in the distance, but Elon and his team knew they had one critical advantage: inside knowledge. Sasha had been monitoring Daniel's movements for months, piecing together intel on his operations. Now, they were going in, not as outsiders, but as part of a plan that had been months in the making. Elon felt the weight of the moment. They were no longer just fighting for Tesla, they were fighting for something far bigger. This was a battle for control over the very future of human evolution, and Elon knew that if they failed, it would mean the end of everything he had built, his companies, his dreams, and the bond he had with Tesla. As they moved toward the entrance, Elon's hand instinctively went to his pocket, where a small device sat, his encrypted phone. Tesla had been by his side through it all, and now he needed to rely on her more than ever. Her presence was a reminder that they were in this together. Without her, none of this would have even been possible. Sasha led the way, moving with confidence and precision. Her eyes scanned the darkened hallways, alert for any signs of movement. She had spent years studying Daniel's methods, but even she had no idea what they would find when they got inside. The building's dark, sterile corridors stretched endlessly, and with each step, the air grew colder, more oppressive. "Stay close," Sasha whispered, her voice low but firm. The rest of the team followed, moving silently through the darkened labyrinth. Elon felt a chill settle deep in his bones as they ventured deeper into the heart of the facility. This place, with its cold, clinical environment, felt like a world unto itself, a world that Daniel had created and controlled. It was the perfect breeding ground for his experiments. And Elon could feel it. He could feel the pulse of something unnatural in the air, as if the entire building thrummed with life. Or rather, with something that pretended to be life. They reached the first security checkpoint, a massive door that led deeper into the facility. Sasha approached the door with caution, pulling a small device from her bag, a specialized tool designed to bypass the security systems. She worked quickly, her hands steady as she connected the device to the lock. The soft hum of the mechanism turning echoed in the silent hallway. Elon glanced over at the team, his heart racing. This was it. They were about to enter the inner sanctum of Daniel's operation. The door clicked open, revealing a long, narrow hallway lined with high-tech equipment and a series of doors, each labeled with ominous numbers and letters. Sasha led the way again, her footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor. "What exactly are we looking for?" Elon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need evidence," Sasha replied, her tone matter-of-fact. "Anything that links Daniel to the hybrid experiments. Something that proves he's crossing a line. We can't just rely on our suspicions anymore. We need hard proof." They moved cautiously down the hallway, checking each door as they passed. Behind each one, there were strange sounds, whirring machines, mechanical clicking, and the occasional hum of energy as though the place itself was alive. Elon's mind raced as he tried to make sense of it all. This was far beyond anything he had ever imagined. Daniel wasn't just playing with artificial intelligence. He was playing with the very fabric of life itself. Sasha stopped in front of one of the doors. A number was etched on the steel surface, Unit 31. It was the last door on the left, and something about it felt different. Elon could feel his pulse quicken as they approached. She turned the handle, and the door creaked open. Inside, the room was dimly lit by rows of monitors and machinery. But what caught Elon's eye was the large tank in the center of the room, a clear cylinder filled with a strange, glowing liquid. Inside the tank, a figure floated, its body obscured by the liquid, but the outline was unmistakable. It was a hybrid. A creature that was part human, part something else. Elon's breath caught in his throat. The figure's skin was translucent, its features grotesquely altered, its eyes large and dark, staring back at him. It was like something from a nightmare, a twisted mockery of humanity. "What is this?" Elon whispered, his voice barely audible. Sasha stepped forward, her expression grim. "This is what Daniel's been working on. This is the next phase of his plan. He's been fusing human and animal DNA, creating these hybrids, and using them as experiments. This one," she pointed at the tank, "is a prototype." Elon felt a cold knot form in his stomach. The figure in the tank was not just a being, it was a product. An experiment in a laboratory, bred and altered for purposes that no human being should ever have the power to control. "What's the next step?" Elon asked, his voice low, filled with dread. Sasha shook her head. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's not going to stop here. Daniel is trying to create an army of these things. If we don't stop him now, there's no telling what he'll do next." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the hallway outside. The team froze. Elon's heart pounded in his chest. Had they been discovered? "Stay quiet," Sasha ordered, her voice harsh as she motioned for everyone to hide behind the large equipment. Elon barely had time to react before the door to the room slammed open. 2 guards, armed and vigilant, entered, their eyes scanning the dark room. Elon's heart raced in his chest. If they were caught now, it would all be over. One of the guards stepped closer to the tank, checking the monitors. "Everything's running smoothly," he muttered, his voice gruff. He looked over at his partner. "Let's move. Dr. Daniels wants us to meet him in the central lab." The other guard nodded, turning to leave. As they moved away, Elon's breath escaped in a rush, the tension in his body slowly fading. Sasha looked at him, her eyes sharp. "We need to move. Now. Before they come back." They didn't hesitate. Quickly, they gathered their things and slipped out of the room, retracing their steps through the facility's winding halls. But as they neared the exit, Elon felt a growing sense of unease. It wasn't just the fear of being caught. It was the gnawing feeling that they were too late, that Daniel had already won. They reached the facility's outer doors, only to stop dead in their tracks. Standing before them was Daniel, his arms crossed, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "I was wondering when you'd show up," he said coolly, his voice devoid of any warmth. "I knew you wouldn't be able to resist." Elon's heart dropped into his stomach. There was no more running. No more hiding. Daniel had anticipated their every move. "You've come to stop me, haven't you?" Daniel continued, his eyes glinting with a mix of arrogance and something darker. "But you've already seen it, Elon. You've seen what we're capable of. And you can't stop it. You can't stop the future." Elon took a step forward, trying to summon whatever courage he had left. "I'll never let you control this. Not my work. Not Tesla. Not humanity." Daniel's smirk only widened. "You'll try. But you're already too late." Elon stood frozen in the hallway, the weight of Daniel's words sinking in. The room around him felt like it was closing in, the fluorescent lights above flickering as if in anticipation of the inevitable confrontation. Tesla was still at his side, her presence a steady comfort, but even she seemed to sense the growing tension. The team behind him stayed quiet, poised, waiting for any sign of what would come next. Daniel was standing a few feet away, his arms still crossed, his smirk unwavering. His eyes gleamed with cold certainty, like a man who had already won the game. "You don't understand, do you, Elon?" Daniel's voice was low, almost patronizing. "This is bigger than any of your inventions, any of your dreams. This is about humanity's next step. The next stage in evolution." Elon's pulse quickened. "Evolution? You're not advancing humanity. You're twisting it, destroying it." Daniel's gaze hardened. "You think I'm the villain here? You've been blinded by your own ideals. Tesla, your bond with her, is exactly what I need. It's the key. You're already connected to the future. I'm just helping it along." Elon's stomach churned at the thought. Daniel's obsession with controlling the bond between humans and animals, manipulating consciousness itself, had never been clearer. Tesla, his loyal dog, had been nothing more than a pawn in a twisted experiment. "And you've been manipulating her for all this time?" Elon's voice cracked as the words left his mouth. "She's not your experiment. She's my partner." Daniel's laugh echoed through the sterile hall. "That's what makes it so easy, Elon. You see her as your partner, but she's part of something much bigger. Don't you see? She's the bridge to everything I've been building. You've been unwittingly helping me all along." Tesla growled softly, her eyes narrowing as she stayed close to Elon. He could feel her protective instinct stirring, a warning that something terrible was about to happen. "Elon," Sasha whispered from behind him, her voice trembling with fear, "we have to get out of here. He's too far gone." Elon nodded, but he couldn't tear his gaze away from Daniel. His mind was racing, trying to find a way to stop him. There was no running now, no turning back. Daniel had them cornered, and Elon knew that if he didn't act soon, it would be too late. "I won't let you do this," Elon said, his voice steady, although the doubt gnawed at him. "You'll never control Tesla, and you'll never control me." Daniel's expression shifted, a flash of frustration crossing his face before it settled into something darker. "You think you have a choice? You're already part of this, Elon. You always have been." Before Elon could react, Daniel pressed a button on a small device in his hand. The sound of distant machinery whirring to life filled the air. Elon's heart skipped a beat as he realized what was happening. A series of doors down the hallway creaked open, and from within, a group of hybrid creatures, those same grotesque, half-human, half-animal beings, began to emerge. Their movements were jerky, mechanical, like puppets on strings, their faces blank and emotionless. Tesla barked, her fur standing on end as she instinctively moved in front of Elon. The hybrids were being released one by one, their eyes glowing unnaturally in the dim light. They looked almost like people, but not quite, an unsettling reminder of the price Daniel was willing to pay for his so-called evolution. "Elon, get out of here." Sasha's voice broke through the panic. "We can't fight this." But Elon wasn't about to run. He couldn't. Tesla was more than just his pet, she was a symbol of everything he had fought for. And Daniel's twisted experiments threatened not just her, but everything he stood for. His mind raced, searching for any way to turn the tide. "Elon," Daniel said, his tone almost mocking now, "you've made it this far. But it's over. The hybrids are unstoppable. They're connected to everything, to you, to Tesla. There's no going back now." Elon's blood ran cold as he realized what Daniel meant. The hybrids were linked to them, connected through the bond they shared with their animals. Tesla wasn't just his partner, she was a link to something much darker. The creatures were mimicking the connection between them, and if Daniel had his way, he would control it, controlling both human and animal minds alike. But there was a flicker of something else, a crack in Daniel's confidence. Elon could see it now. Daniel's obsession with control had blinded him to something important. "Daniel," Elon said, his voice suddenly calm and deliberate, "you've underestimated something. You think you can control this bond, but you're forgetting one thing. Tesla isn't just a tool. She's part of me. She's a living being with her own instincts, her own intelligence. You can't force that." For a moment, Daniel looked uncertain, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. Then, without warning, he gestured to one of the hybrids. The creature lurched forward, its inhuman form moving with alarming speed. Tesla growled, stepping in front of Elon, her body taut with readiness. Elon's heart pounded as the hybrid advanced. It was a test, one that Daniel was willing to take. If Tesla could stop the hybrid, it would prove Elon's point. If not, then Daniel's plan would succeed. Tesla stood her ground, her fur bristling as she bared her teeth. The hybrid stopped just in front of her, its blank eyes staring into hers. For a moment, the two creatures locked gazes, an almost human moment of recognition. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, Tesla lunged at the hybrid. It was a blur of motion, fast, fierce, and powerful. Tesla's jaws snapped, catching the hybrid's arm in a vice-like grip. The creature let out a low growl, but Tesla held firm, her strength unmatched. Daniel's eyes widened in disbelief. No. That's impossible. But it was happening. Tesla, with all her power and instinct, was overpowering the hybrid. Her connection to Elon, the deep bond between them, was more than just a link, it was a weapon, something Daniel had miscalculated. The hybrid staggered back, its movements growing erratic as Tesla's grip tightened. In that moment, Elon saw it, Tesla wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for all of them. She was a force of nature, not a tool to be controlled. "Stop this, Daniel!" Elon shouted, his voice filled with urgency. "You don't understand what you're doing. This isn't evolution, it's destruction." But Daniel stood still, frozen, his mind struggling to process the situation. He had thought he could manipulate the bond, break it to his will. But now, he was witnessing the truth, Tesla was not a product of science, but of nature, a force beyond anyone's control. As Tesla finally released her grip on the hybrid, sending it crashing to the ground, the room fell silent. The other hybrids stood motionless, seemingly uncertain of what to do. Daniel took a step back, his face pale. This isn't possible." Elon's voice was steady but firm. "You've lost, Daniel. You've tried to control something that can't be controlled. And now, you'll see what happens when you mess with nature." Tesla stood at his side, her body still tense but ready. Together, they had proven that nothing could break their bond, not even Daniel's twisted experiments. The hybrids may have been the future in Daniel's mind, but Tesla, Elon's true companion, was a reminder that some things could never be artificially created. Elon turned to Sasha. "Let's finish this." Sasha nodded, her expression resolute. With a final glance at Daniel, who stood there in shock, they began to move forward. It was time to take back control. Elon's heart pounded in his chest as he and the team moved swiftly down the hallway, the sound of their footsteps muted by the cold, sterile air. Tesla walked beside him, her head held high, eyes constantly scanning for any new threats. The hybrids, though momentarily stunned, were not out of the equation. Daniel's machinations had turned this place into a breeding ground for the very worst humanity could create, an abomination of technology and biology. The facility felt like a prison now, each corner hiding a secret, a warning that time was running out. Daniel's grip on the operation seemed to waver, but it was clear that the danger was far from over. If they were going to stop him, they needed to act quickly, before the hybrids could be fully unleashed. "Keep moving," Sasha urged, her voice low but filled with a determination that mirrored Elon's own. "We have to find the central control room." It's the only place we can shut this down. Elon nodded, his thoughts racing. Sasha had been the one to pinpoint the location of the central lab. It was the heart of the operation, the place where all of Daniel's experiments were monitored, the nerve center of the chaos that had taken over the facility. But what they didn't know was how deeply Daniel's influence had taken root. If there was a way to stop him for good, the control room would hold the key. Elon, do you have any idea what he's done? Tesla's voice broke through his thoughts. She spoke not in words, but in a deep, instinctual connection, as if the bond between them had given her insight into his inner turmoil. Daniel, he's connected everything to me. Elon swallowed hard. Tesla was right. Daniel had been using her, manipulating the bond they shared to control the hybrids, to try and harness something greater than human intelligence. If Tesla had any doubt that she was a mere pawn, it was gone now. He's tried to make you a part of his experiment, Elon said quietly, his voice thick with frustration. But you're not. You never were. Tesla barked softly, as if to reaffirm the truth of his words. She was no experiment, she was his partner. And she had proven tonight that nothing, not even Daniel's twisted hybrid army, could break the bond they shared. We'll fix this, Tesla. We'll take back control, Elon whispered, more to himself than to her. The team moved in sync, urgency fueling their every step. As they neared the end of the corridor, the hum of machinery grew louder, filling the air with a sense of dread. The central lab was just ahead. But with each step, the tension grew thicker, as if the very walls were alive with the sound of impending danger. Sasha stopped in her tracks. We're close, she said, her voice tight. Get ready. There's no telling what we'll find when we go in. Elon's breath caught in his throat as they approached the final door. The lock was heavily fortified, a high-tech security system that would take a few moments to bypass. Sasha had anticipated this, and as she worked quickly with the device, Elon's mind wandered back to the battle with the hybrids. The fight with Daniel's creations had been intense, but Tesla had proved her worth time and time again. If they didn't stop Daniel now, there was a chance his creations would reach the outside world, an army of hybrids, controlled by technology, fueled by a false sense of evolution. He had to end this. Suddenly, the door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the central lab. It was vast, rows upon rows of high-tech equipment, monitors displaying information in a foreign language, and glass tanks filled with liquid that seemed to pulse with life. The air was thick with the smell of sterile chemicals and something else, something far more unsettling. Elon, Sasha's voice broke through his reverie. She motioned to the far side of the room, where a large terminal sat, glowing ominously in the dim light. That's it. That's the control hub. They moved quickly toward the terminal, but just as they reached it, the room's lights flickered, and a low, mechanical hum filled the air. Elon's eyes darted around the lab, but it was too late. The door slammed shut, sealing them inside. A voice echoed through the speakers, cold and detached. Welcome, Elon. I was wondering when you'd get here. Elon froze. It was Daniel. His voice crackled through the speakers, filling the room with an eerie sense of control. You think you can stop me? Daniel's voice taunted. You're too late. Everything is already in motion. My hybrids are waking up as we speak. They're the future. And you, well, you're just a relic of the past. Elon's hands clenched into fists, his frustration mounting. I won't let you do this. Not to Tesla. Not to anyone. There was a brief silence before Daniel's laughter filled the room. You really don't understand, do you? Tesla was never the problem. It was always you. You thought you could stand in the way of progress. But look around you, Elon. The future is already here. The screens in the room suddenly shifted, showing footage of the hybrids, now fully awake and moving, their eyes glowing with unnatural energy. They were scattered across different parts of the facility, and Elon could see the chaos unfolding. The hybrids were not just mindless creatures. They were intelligent, capable of carrying out orders, following commands. They were weapons in their purest form, ready to be unleashed on the world. No. Elon breathed, realizing the scope of Daniel's plan. You've created an army. Daniel's voice came through again, this time with an air of finality. It's already done. The hybrid army is unstoppable. And the best part? You helped me create it. You and Tesla both. You'll be the first to witness what happens when humanity is no longer in control. When evolution is in the hands of something far greater. Sasha stepped forward, her face determined. We can still stop this. We can still destroy the control system. Elon nodded, but his mind raced. The hybrids had been released, and there was no turning back now. The control room was their last hope. If they could destroy it, they could take down the entire operation. But they had to act quickly, before the hybrids fully adapted to their environment. Tesla, Elon said, turning to her. We need to take down the control system. Can you do it? Tesla's ears perked up, and she looked at him, eyes filled with understanding. Without a word, she darted toward the terminal, her paws quick and precise. Elon watched as she used her claws to rip at the wires beneath the console, the system sparking and sputtering as she attacked. Sasha and the others worked alongside Tesla, trying to hack into the terminal's security systems. Time was running out. Elon knew it. They had to act fast. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway outside, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps. Elon, get ready, Sasha warned, her voice filled with urgency. The hybrids were coming. Elon's gaze sharpened as he saw Tesla work with a purpose. She was more than a partner. She was a weapon, and together, they had the power to stop Daniel's twisted vision. He only hoped they weren't too late. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, echoing down the corridor outside the lab like thunder before a storm. Elon's pulse quickened, and his thoughts raced. The hybrids were coming, there was no time to waste. Tesla was still at the terminal, her paws moving with frantic precision as she tore through wires, trying to disable the control system that had given Daniel his power over them. Elon, we can't hold them off for long, Sasha said, her voice laced with urgency. She was scanning the room, looking for any exit or way to slow down the hybrids. We need to get that system offline, now. Tesla growled softly, her body tense as she worked, but Elon could see the flicker of determination in her eyes. She knew what was at stake. She wasn't just fighting for her own freedom, she was fighting for the world that still held a chance at survival. With one final, powerful tug of her claws, Tesla severed a thick bundle of cables, and the terminal sparked, sending a cascade of sparks and smoke into the air. Elon and Sasha stepped back, but there was no time to celebrate the small victory. The door at the far end of the lab began to rattle, the sound of the hybrid's heavy footsteps growing nearer. We've got to get out of here, Elon said through gritted teeth. The system's down, but we can't wait around for them to break through. But even as he spoke, the room was plunged into darkness. The lights flickered once more, and then everything went silent. Elon's heart raced as he strained to listen, every fiber of his being alert to any sound that might signal the hybrid's entry. Sasha pulled out a small flashlight from her pack, illuminating the room with a weak beam. This isn't good, she muttered. We're trapped in here, and the backup power's not kicking in. Elon glanced at the disabled terminal, then at Tesla, whose gaze was locked on the door. They couldn't hide. Not with what was coming. The hybrids were near, and they were going to breach the lab any second. Then, Elon heard it, a low hum. It came from deep within the walls. And then, the unmistakable sound of doors sliding open. We've got to move, now. Sasha shouted. Without hesitation, Elon grabbed Tesla's harness, pulling her to him. She followed him immediately, her body tensed for action. The team ran toward the back of the lab, pushing through the rows of scientific equipment and experiments that had lined the once sterile and organized room. Now it was a maze of chaos, with wires, equipment, and broken monitors scattered across the floor. They reached the far wall where a small ventilation shaft was tucked behind a set of cabinets. Sasha quickly pried open the cover, but just as she did, a loud crash came from the door they had left behind. The first of the hybrids entered, its glowing eyes scanning the dark room. "Elon!" Sasha snapped. "We're not going to make it if we don't move. Now." He didn't need to be told twice. Grabbing the nearest tools, he used them to help pry open the vent. The rest of the team followed closely, with Tesla leading the way. As soon as they entered the narrow shaft, Elon slammed the cover shut, trapping the hybrids in the lab for now. But he knew it wouldn't hold them for long. The hybrids were relentless, stronger, faster, and smarter than anything they had ever faced before. The air in the shaft was thick with the smell of metal and oil, the narrow passage barely wide enough for all of them to squeeze through. Tesla darted ahead, her keen instincts guiding the group, while Elon and Sasha brought up the rear. The ventilation shaft twisted and turned, the light from Sasha's flashlight casting strange shadows along the walls. But even as they moved, the sense of urgency was palpable. They needed to get out of the facility, and fast. The hybrids were only moments away from breaking through, and they had no idea just how far Daniel's influence reached. "Where does this vent lead?" Elon asked, his breath coming in short gasps as they crawled through the narrow passage. "According to the layout, it should take us to the east wing," Sasha said, glancing at the digital map she had stored on her device. "From there, we can make our way to the exit. But we have to hurry. If we don't reach the exit soon, they'll lock down the entire complex." The group moved faster, pushing forward with all their might, but the further they went, the more strained the situation became. The air grew heavier, and the shaft seemed to stretch on endlessly. Just as Elon thought they might be nearing the end, a loud, mechanical grinding noise echoed from behind them. The hybrids were catching up. "Elon, we can't outrun them in this shaft," Sasha said, her voice tight with panic. "We need to find another way." But Elon wasn't listening to her. He was focused on Tesla, whose senses were heightened, her fur bristling as she looked back at the group. She was the key. He had to trust that she would guide them to safety, just as she had done so many times before. Suddenly, Tesla stopped, her ears twitching. She turned toward a grate in the wall and began pawing at it with her sharp claws. Elon's eyes widened in realization. Tesla had found something. "Over here," he shouted. "Quick, get to the grate." Sasha and the others scrambled toward the wall, helping Elon remove the grate just in time to see Tesla jump through the small opening, disappearing into the darkness beyond. "Go! Go!" Elon urged. One by one, the team followed Tesla, emerging into a small, abandoned storage room. The space was cramped, the walls lined with crates and old equipment. But there was a door on the far side of the room, an exit. They wasted no time. Elon and Sasha led the way, and Tesla trotted ahead, her nose to the ground as she searched for any signs of danger. Just as they reached the door, a loud crash echoed from behind them. The hybrids were close, too close. "Move!" Elon shouted. Sasha slammed the door open, and the team burst into the hallway. The facility's emergency lights flickered above them, casting an eerie glow across the abandoned corridors. There was a sense of finality now. They were almost there, just a few more steps to freedom. But the hybrids weren't far behind. Elon could hear their heavy footsteps pounding down the hallway, their growls growing louder with every passing second. They sprinted toward the exit, adrenaline pumping through their veins. Elon could feel the weight of the moment, the knowledge that they were on the brink of either success or failure. And then, just as they reached the door, it slid open. Outside, the night air was cool, and the stars shone brightly overhead. They had made it. For now. Elon turned back toward the facility, his eyes dark with resolve. The battle wasn't over yet. But they had one last chance to stop Daniel and his hybrids from unleashing chaos on the world. He wasn't about to let that happen. Elon stood outside the facility, his breath visible in the cold night air, feeling the weight of the moment settling over him like a heavy cloak. They had escaped. But they hadn't won. Not yet. The hybrids were still out there, and Daniel's twisted plan was far from over. He could feel the urgency building within him, like the seconds on a countdown clock ticking away. Sasha, Tesla, and the rest of the team were already gathered, taking in the dark horizon ahead of them. The place they had just escaped from was still alive with the hum of machines, but those machines were no longer their only enemy. The real danger now lay in what Daniel had created and what they had barely managed to escape from. "We're not safe yet," Elon said, his voice steady, though his mind raced. "Daniel's hybrids are still out there. If they've been activated, they'll have orders to hunt us down. We need to stop him, right now." "We'll need backup," Sasha said, glancing at her watch. "There's no way we can do this alone. Not if we're going to face down Daniel and his army. We need to get to the city. Get the authorities involved. Get to the people who can shut this down once and for all." "Elon, we can't wait around for the government to respond," Tesla said, her voice calm but resolute. She looked at him with a deep understanding. The urgency was in her eyes, too. "If we're going to stop Daniel, we need to hit him where it hurts. His central command. The power he holds is in that facility. It's in his control room, the place where he monitors the hybrids and his experiments." Elon took a deep breath, thinking over Tesla's words. The control room, the heart of everything. If they could destroy it, if they could shut down the entire operation, they would sever Daniel's grip on the hybrids and end this nightmare. But it wouldn't be easy. They had already seen what kind of hell Daniel was capable of creating. "I know," Elon said, his mind already calculating their next steps. "But we can't do it alone. The hybrids are too advanced. They're unpredictable. We need a plan to get inside and destroy his operation once and for all." Sasha nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. "I'll reach out to my contacts. They're already on high alert, and they'll be able to help us get the resources we need. But we have to move fast. Time is running out." Suddenly, the sound of an engine revving broke through their conversation. Elon looked up sharply, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. There, in the distance, he could see a convoy of black SUVs speeding toward them. The headlights cut through the darkness like searching beacons. "Who the hell is that?" Sasha asked, her hand instinctively going to the gun at her hip. Elon felt his stomach tighten. It wasn't the government. Not yet. His mind quickly jumped to conclusions. Daniel. It had to be him. "Get ready," Elon ordered, his voice a low growl. "It's him. He's sending his army after us." They had no time to waste. The convoy wasn't slowing down. It was speeding up, heading straight toward them. As the SUVs drew closer, Elon could make out the figures inside. People, armed and ready. These weren't just any henchmen. These were Daniel's private army. His final line of defense. If they reached them before they could regroup, it would be over. Tesla barked once, her posture alert and protective. She was ready for whatever came next. "Move out," Elon shouted. "Into the trees. We'll use the cover. Stay low." The team scattered, sprinting toward the nearby woods, using the cover of trees and darkness to shield themselves from the oncoming convoy. They didn't have much time. The SUVs were closing in, and the sound of their engines grew louder by the second. Elon and Tesla ran side by side, weaving through the trees with precision. He glanced back, his heart pounding in his chest. The convoy had reached the clearing, and the armed men were beginning to disembark. They were fast, organized, trained for this kind of fight. They were ready to hunt. The first shot rang out, a sharp crack through the night air. Sasha and the others had taken cover in the trees, returning fire as best they could. Elon ducked, pulling Tesla close to him. He couldn't risk losing her, not now. Elon, we can't stay here. Sasha's voice came over the comms. We need to get to higher ground. If we're going to make it, we need the advantage. He didn't hesitate. Head for the ridge. We need to get to the high ground, take them from above. Move. The team pushed forward, climbing over rocks and through dense foliage as the shots continued to ring out behind them. Elon's mind was on the prize, the control room. It had to be destroyed. If they could just get to it, if they could shut Daniel down, they would end this nightmare. But first, they had to survive this ambush. Elon reached the ridge first, pulling himself up and scanning the area below. The convoy had split up. Some of the armed men were moving along the base of the hill, while others were using the trees for cover. It was only a matter of time before they figured out where the team was hiding. Get ready, Elon whispered, looking to Tesla. Her hackles were raised, her body poised for action. She knew what was coming. Sasha reached the ridge next, followed by the others. They had the high ground, but they didn't have long before the men below realized where they were. Elon, we have to make this quick, Sasha said, adjusting her position. We've got a small window of opportunity. Let's take them out, then head for the facility. Elon, Tesla barked, her ears flicking toward the forest behind them. She was alert, far more than usual. Elon followed her gaze, his eyes narrowing. They're flanking us, Elon said, his voice tight. We've got incoming. Sasha moved swiftly, taking her position and signaling to the others. They were ready. It was time. Elon and Tesla dropped to the ground, taking their position at the ridge's edge. They had no choice now. It was either fight or be overrun. The armed men appeared at the bottom of the ridge, guns raised. Elon's heart pounded as he looked at the team, now poised to fight with everything they had. Hold your fire until I give the signal, Elon ordered, his voice calm despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. We do this together. The moonlight bathed the ridge in a ghostly glow as Elon, Sasha, and the rest of the team waited in tense silence. Below them, the armed men from Daniel's private army were advancing, unaware that they were being watched from the shadows. Tesla's low growl vibrated in Elon's chest, her heightened senses picking up every movement. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, the air heavy with the scent of pine and the faint metallic tang of adrenaline. Elon's heart raced, but he kept his breathing steady. The control room, Daniel's final stronghold, was within their grasp, but they had to make it through this first. The ambush from the convoy had caught them off guard, but they'd made it to the ridge. Now, it was time to turn the tables. We're in position, Sasha's voice crackled over the comms, her tone sharp and focused. Just give us the word, Elon. He glanced over at her, her silhouette barely visible in the moonlight. With a swift nod, he acknowledged her readiness. The team was scattered along the ridge, each one in position, their weapons drawn and aimed at their enemies below. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting for the world's future. Elon, Tesla's voice was a soft but urgent growl in his mind. She had always been more than just a dog, she was his partner, his protector, and his guide. We can do this. Together. He looked at her, giving her a silent nod of agreement. Then, with a deep breath, he gave the signal. Now. Sasha, ever the sharpshooter, fired first, her shot ringing out like a thunderclap in the quiet of the night. The sound echoed across the ridge, and the first man crumpled to the ground. Chaos erupted below as the remaining armed men scrambled for cover, their weapons blazing as they returned fire. But they were outmatched. Elon and his team had the high ground, and they were better prepared. "Keep moving," Elon shouted, as he took a knee and returned fire. His shots were precise, each one hitting its mark. The armed men were disoriented, and that's when Tesla took action. With a burst of speed, she lunged from her position, darting through the trees like a shadow, her eyes glowing with determination. She was the perfect weapon, agile, fast, and deadly. The remaining mercenaries tried to react, but Tesla was already upon them, knocking them off balance with a swift strike. Her teeth flashed in the moonlight as she took down one of them, her powerful jaws closing around his arm, forcing him to the ground. "Elon, look out!" Sasha's voice cut through the chaos, and Elon snapped his head to the side, just in time to see one of the men charging at him. The mercenary was large and armed, his gun raised, ready to fire. Before Elon could react, Tesla was there, jumping between him and the attacker. She knocked the man aside with a forceful shove, sending him tumbling into the underbrush. Elon quickly grabbed his weapon and fired a shot, taking the man down before he could recover. "Thanks, girl," Elon muttered, his voice tight with relief. Tesla returned to his side, her body poised and alert, ready for the next fight. But there was no time to rest. More mercenaries were still closing in, and Elon could hear the sound of reinforcements approaching from the far side of the ridge. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. "Elon, we've got company," Sasha shouted, pointing toward the incoming vehicles, more black SUVs, their headlights cutting through the dark forest like predators hunting their prey. "Elon, we need to go now," Tesla's voice was firm, urgent. "The longer we stay, the more they'll bring. We've got to get to the control room. It's our only chance to stop this." He knew she was right. As much as he wanted to finish this fight, the real battle lay ahead, inside the facility, in Daniel's control room, where the future of everything they had fought for would be decided. "Move!" Elon yelled, gesturing for the team to fall back. "We're heading for the facility. Now!" With Tesla leading the charge, they sprinted down the ridge, making their way toward the facility's back entrance. The sound of the approaching SUVs grew louder, but Elon kept his focus, pushing himself harder, ignoring the burn in his legs. They had to make it. They had no other option. Behind them, the sounds of the firefight continued as the mercenaries regrouped and attempted to pursue, but the team had a head start. Tesla led them through the forest with incredible speed, weaving through the trees and underbrush, always staying one step ahead of the enemy. The facility was coming into view, a dark silhouette against the star-filled sky. They were so close. "Elon!" Sasha called, her voice tight with exertion. "There's no time for a direct assault. We'll need to sneak in through the service entrance. There's a hidden access point under the south wall. It's the only way." Elon nodded sharply, his mind already working out the logistics. They didn't have the luxury of a frontal assault. They'd have to be quick, stealthy, and smart. "Let's go," he said, his voice commanding. "Stick together, keep moving." They reached the service entrance within minutes, the heavy door looming in front of them. Elon quickly examined the lock and pulled a small device from his pocket, a gadget he'd built himself for situations just like this. A few quick clicks, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the facility was eerily quiet. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly glow on the walls. They moved quickly, staying low to avoid detection. Tesla led the way, her ears perked as she sniffed the air for any sign of danger. They knew Daniel's hybrids would be lurking somewhere inside. It was only a matter of time before they encountered them. "Elon," Sasha whispered, her voice sharp in the silence. "The control room is on the top floor. We need to get there fast. If we don't shut down the main systems now, we're done for." They continued down the narrow hallways, their footsteps silent on the cold concrete floor. As they neared the stairwell that would take them to the control room, Elon felt the familiar surge of determination coursing through him. This was it. The final confrontation. They reached the stairs, but just as they began to ascend, a low growl echoed from the shadows ahead. Elon froze. Tesla's body went rigid beside him. They weren't alone. One by one, the hybrids appeared, stepping out from the darkness, their glowing eyes locked onto the team. The final showdown had begun. "Elon, we have to move now," Sasha shouted. But it was already too late. With a roar, the hybrids lunged, and the fight for the future of the world began. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?